All right. Well, today is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022 of our City Council work session. Calling to order, and just notice to the public that the council may vote to go into executive session for legal advice on any of the agendized items. Roll call, please.
Mayor Deasy,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sweet,
Here.
Councilmember Aslan,
Present.
Councilmember House. Here. Councilmember McCarthy,
Here.
Councilmember Salas,
Present.
Councilmember Shimoni.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember House, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. And Councilmember Salas, our mission statement.
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
And how about Councilmember Shimoni? Would you please state our land acknowledgement, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you, Councilmember. That brings us to agenda item 4, our general public participation, and we do have 3 cards here, starting with Rose Hook. If you could, yeah, it's not actually hot yet. There we go, it's red now.
Thank you. I'm here today to ask your help for something. I ride my bike probably every other day from home to NAU and back. San Francisco Street, northbound at Butler becomes one way with a right lane that is supposed to be open for bicyclists. And I've been to the bike committee about this. I've talked to various staff people about this. The problem is how unsafe that route is because there's little to no signage. The bike stencils have disappeared into the earth. And this is such a simple fix, and it would make so much difference to bicyclists. I'm asking you, since this is May and it's bike month, and because NAU is not in session right now, it would be the ideal time for our street department to do this. Please, please, put the stencils on. This is paint. That's all I'm asking. It's a shared lane, and there should be a sign at Butler on the crossarm where it says begin one way, say shared right lane with bikes. It's easy. And then cars that are coming up behind me and cutting in front of me and trying to scoot me off the street might understand that I have a right to be there just as much as they do. It's a really heavily used bike path in town. It's not going to get any better. Please, if you can do anything to direct staff to help get this done soon. So thanks very much. I know this is a work session and you can't really talk about anything, but I came today just to make this plea for that action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose. Next individual, Tom Martin.
Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Tom Martin. I live at 419 West Navajo. I've come here today with two thank yous. My first thank you is for your service here. I don't agree with everything you do, but I am so happy that you are here doing what you're doing. So thank you. That's the first thank you I've got. I graduated from the physical therapy department here back in the last century, long ago. And I had the chance to serve this community following physicians. My second thank you is to Dr. Stephen Ritland, a neurosurgeon who's served this community for over 3 decades. As a physical therapist, I get to pick up the surgical pieces of people and watch them regain their lives. And Ritland is a neurosurgeon. He deals with the most complicated network in our body. I'm wondering if you get these requests for letters of recognition, proclamations of recognition, I'm not sure how you call them, but that's the second thank you I'd like you to consider today. And again, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Tom. And next, Eric Wolverton.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, city manager, and city staff. My name is Eric Wolverton. I'm with Habitat for Humanity of Northern Arizona. Over the last 15 years, the city housing staff created the Flagstaff Land Trust Program. At this time, this was a groundbreaking achievement for any municipality to create. Focused to keep certain lands owned by the city to provide permanent housing solutions, land trusts can allow developers to build without the expense of land itself. For nonprofits, this means cutting the cost of development by nearly 30 to 40%. Habitat for Humanity is proud to have built 8 homes in partnership with the Flagstaff Land Trust Program so far. So why are there not more homes built on our land trust by private developers? The simple answer is lending. Habitat is unique that we both build and provide financing for our homeowners. Because private developers do not get in the lending arena, they are forced to identify lenders that for their buyers, which creates frustration. When banks lend on any home, they look at 2 assets, the land and the home. As we know, homes only depreciate over time, while land is the direct opposite. It becomes an unwise investment to lend on only a depreciating asset. This was the case on the Isabel homes across from the Hal Jensen Activity Center. When it was first started, it was a private-public nonprofit partnership. A private developer built the homes on land trust lands, and a local nonprofit was tasked to find the lending for the low-income homeowners. When 2008 came around, all lending options were gone, with 6 homes remaining to be built. So Habitat applied to finish the neighborhood and did so successfully because we provide the lending. Now, the private sector, in partnership with Habitat for Humanity's Starter Home Program, we are excited I should take that back. Private landowners are excited and have expressed the want to put lands into the Land Trust Program for the express use to build affordable workforce housing with Habitat managing the financing and taking that burden off their plate. The solutions have always been in place. Now we're looking to utilize them in new ways to build stronger partnerships with a shared outcome. Build more, serve more, and be the change our community desperately needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Do we have anyone online for public participation?
We do not.
All right, thank you. Just checking here. With that, we are down to agenda item 5, which is review of draft agenda for the May 17th, 2022 City Council meeting. Council, any questions, concerns about the agenda for next week? Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. Concerning item 9B, this is a plat that we would be asked to review, which is in Timber Sky. So what I'd be interested in is when this comes back to us that we take a look at it with respect to the Timber Sky Development Agreement and make sure that we're fulfilling what's obligated in that agreement and before we approve any more plats. In other words, we want to make sure that this plat that's going to come back to us is consistent with the needs of the Timber Sky Development Agreement.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy, for bringing that up. And I am in agreement. Anything else, Council? Pull this up, make sure I got Shimoni taken care of. All right. With that, we're moving right along to our city manager report, agenda item number 6. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The report came to you not in the packet, but by email yesterday morning. I apologize for that. Last week was crazy, hectic, and even though this was largely done on Friday, we needed some final touches, so it came to you yesterday. If you have not read it yet, look for the email of yesterday morning. I will quickly go through it. It is supplemented by a newsletter regarding our boards and commissions, and I would invite Stacy Fobar to speak to that if she likes or if you have questions. In the report, there are some updates, tidbits regarding our fire department, and some good news there. Meeting with the Knowles Elementary School and some other fun reads. Updates from the HR and RM, Human Resources and Risk Management. I might touch on this a bit. With much gratitude, we're bringing in Brad Hill as an interim director, part-time of our water services team. Brad, of course, retired a couple of years ago, and we've been working hard to interfere with that perfectly well-deserved retirement. So I did ask him respectfully, he's been consulting for us, so I asked him to check in with his spouse, which he did. They talked about it, and they're both comfortable with him helping us out on a part-time basis. We are grateful for that to happen. He, of course, will be helping to fill a void that will be left by Andy Bertelson when he leaves at the end of the month. Congratulations to Andy. Also, in an effort to solidify the leadership out there, we will be filling a couple of other vacancies with some temporary job promotions. The operations level of our utilities and water services was previously occupied by Mark Richardson. That position remains unfilled at this point, and I think we're going to do a couple of things in an effort to fill that, at least on an interim basis, and then we'll look to fill it permanently. But we're looking at taking that position and bifurcating it into two positions. One would be an operational oversight of the treatment plants, the water treatment plant, and our two wastewater plants, or wastewater and reclamation facility. The other would be operational oversight of the field systems. That's our collection and distribution system, basically the pipes in the ground. We have pieces in place for that to happen. I stay tuned on that. Once we are final on that, I'll let you know more details. But those are all efforts being taken to bolster our leadership out at Water Services, while we endeavor at the same time to bring on a professional recruiter to help us in some recruitment processes. This will be one of the first. Rick Barrett's position will be also one of the first. We'll probably do both of those in tandem. We are interviewing our recruiters this week. We had a good submittal by 4 or 5 recruiters. The panel scored at those submittals, and we will be having interviews of the final candidates this week, with every intent of hiring at least one and possibly 2 of the recruiting firms. These firms will help us with recruitment efforts going forward, probably over a 3 to 5 year period. I want to thank the folks in procurement for helping out on this. It's been a high priority project, obviously, to help fill these leadership positions. Internally, there's some neat things going on as well. I'm not going to steal the thunder there. There's been efforts to work on a video and a lot of promotion happening. You've seen snippets of that, and I think there will be more coming your way to show what we're doing internally as well to help with these recruitment efforts. Very important stuff. Moving on, I guess in the same realm of human resources and promotions, I'd like to note what you probably know by now, but it has been made official. We have we have brought Sarah Langley into the position of Public Affairs Director. We had a recruitment there, and she was the successful submitter in that, so congratulations to Sarah Langley. She's been fulfilling that role on a temporary or interim basis for several months. And we are just all very elated to see her now step in as a full-time, no interim adjectives anymore. She is the full-time Public Affairs Director, permanent Public Affairs Director, and we're quite happy for her. I gave you a little update about the Citizen Bond Committee. Last couple of meetings have been largely in person. Much appreciation to the pros team for accommodating us at the Aquaplex. The Citizen Bond Committee has been so busy. They are deliberating now with final recommendations based upon a lot of input, and they're making great progress. And I think you can expect recommendations coming your way in early June, so stay tuned on that. Some updates from our police department, and I want to speak to one in particular, two rather. Police personnel joined the Boys and Girls Club in celebration of the Youth of the Year Awards. How cool is that? They've also been hosting Coffee with a Cop with some success, but I do want to mention, I like to do this when opportunity presents itself to share with you a bit of an alarming or scary story that actually has a good outcome. No injuries, so I'm comfortable expressing this to you. But I want to single out Sergeant Grant Kelly, who was on patrol near the Murdoch Center when he was approached by a citizen whose spouse had confronted a suspect who had been breaking into their neighbor's vehicle. The suspect was approached and fled, and Sergeant Kelly pursued and recognized the suspect from a department bulletin that was advising of this suspect with multiple thefts and likely armed and dangerous. The suspect stopped running and reached into his backpack. When Sergeant Kelly commanded the suspect to drop the gun, he ran and barricaded himself into a residence. The SWAT team arrived, and within an hour's time and much effort and the tactics that were employed, there was a successful outcome to this, and the suspect was apprehended, and there was stolen firearms in his possession. So wanted to give very well-deserved thanks to Sergeant Grant Kelly for his heroics in helping to bring closure, at least, closure to a multitude of burglary cases that were suspected, and also for bringing forward the arrest of a dangerous suspect. So well done, Sergeant. Thank you for your efforts. If I may move on to the Parks and Rec, the pros department, a few updates for you there. The open space team has been working with our fire department and parks to align closures with messaging about out to the public as we get our green spaces ready and city parks ready. A lot of work going on. Let's see, new floor coverings in the Joe C. Montoya facility. Hal Jensen staff working with students. The Flagstaff Junior Academy 3rd and 4th grades joined our open space personnel to learn about invasive weeds and partook in some exercises there. Thank you very much for that. And on to Public Works, concrete crews are out working hard. I want to give thanks to Todd Hansen and the landfill team for the weekend response to support the tunnel fire cleanup. This is now a week old, so thanks nevertheless for your efforts. Facilities maintenance team is very busy working in all the different buildings throughout the city. And there's an update on the Department of Environmental Quality inspection at Snowbowl. I know that's of interest, so please give that a read. I have been attending many meetings of late of interest. The Citizen Bond Committee, of course, work in progress. We had a Downtown Business Alliance meeting last week. with a nice presentation from representatives of the Northern Arizona Health team regarding the status of the hospital relocation. We've had very good and productive meetings with BNSF. The most recent one was yesterday. These continue. The agendas are intensive, and we're spending a lot of time in preparation of grant submittals and a number of other things. It's been a great partnership, and we remain optimistic as to what's to follow, but it's great to see so many people in the room working hard towards such needed projects here. I'm speaking specifically of the downtown mile and, of course, the Rio. So stay tuned on that. There's a lot going on with those efforts. I think with that, Council, I'm going to stop and invite any questions that you may have. If Stacy Fobar would like to speak to the newsletter that she appended to this report, you can do that at your leisure, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilmember Aslan?
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Greg. Thank you very much for the report. I wanted to just publicly state that I am very excited for Andy's transition into management over at the county. I believe that's going to be a good fit for him, and I really excited for him and wish him all the best. I know that has created a little bit, well, I don't want to get too particular with terms here, but you know, it's always a headache to try to replace a team that's working well. And I know that you've had the task of finding a permanent water director for a while. We've talked about this in private. I just wanted to mention publicly my considerations and advice for you. I know you're working hard on this. I have absolutely no doubt you will come to a wonderful decision at the end of the day, and it's great to hear that we're making progress with recruiters. I just wanted to reiterate with you my advice that we really aim for someone who is capable of doing this job for a long time, but also who brings a lot of innovation and new perspective to an industry that is dealing with a number of emerging concerns and also emerging technologies. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to sort of slide into the future with some long-term thinking where we're engaging in a lot of new ways of thinking long-term. And I really appreciate your attention to that and your consideration for that. And best of luck filling a very difficult role and filling some very irreplaceable shoes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and a message well stated and well received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Aslan. With that, I'm not seeing any further comments or questions. Appreciate the report as usual. Great to always see how much work all of our employees are putting in and how all the pieces are fitting together. So, Ms. Fobar, were you wanting to speak to the add-on to the report?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. Attached to the City Manager's report this month is our quarterly Boards and Commissions newsletter. The purpose of the newsletter is to disseminate information about what all boards and commissions are doing, any interactions between the boards, and also to really be a marketing tool for board and commission members to go out into the community to try to entice new applicants. Highlights from this month include that we will be moving back to hybrid meetings for all boards and commissions. You have reports from the Commission on Diversity Awareness, the Water Commission, with some interesting photographs, some beautiful pictures, and an article on the Beautification and Public Art Commission, the Commission on Inclusion and Adaptive Living, the Sustainability Commission, the Library Board, and the Indigenous Commission. We also highlight some available and upcoming seats. Some that are very important are Board of Adjustments, Flagstaff Housing Authority, Housing Commission. We always have openings on the Industrial Development Authority, the Mountain Line TAC, and the Transportation Commission. If you all would have any other questions for me, I'm happy to speak to them. And thank you so much for your attention to the newsletter.
Thank you, Ms. Fobar. And I will just note that we are really appreciative of all of our commissioners and individuals who are giving their time to our community. Our council really does listen to our commissions to better understand how to direct our policies in the public's interest. And we are in need of additional commissioners on multiple of our commissions. Some that are full, plus some. Lots of applicants for them. Some of them, though, we are having difficulties reaching quorum to be able to hold our meetings, and that's backing up a lot of our policies and things that we really do want the public's input before council discusses them. So I'm urging everyone, if you're interested in anything from sustainability to our bike ped infrastructure, anything else, we do have 26 commissions for the city of Flagstaff that need your input. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, thank you so much for an amazing report. I'd like to celebrate Economic Development Week by inviting Economic Vitality Director and Interim Deputy City Manager Heidi Hansen to talk about the activities plan for Economic Development Week. And I also want to recognize in the audience Mr. Josh Mayer, who also chairs our Economic Collaborative of Northern Arizona. Is Heidi online?
I believe so. There she is.
Sorry, trying to blur my. Can you hear me, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you, so you're good to go.
I'm having trouble with my camera. I apologize. I'm Heidi. I'm the interim deputy city manager, and I want to thank Councilmember Salas for recognizing that it's Economic Development Week. Last week we celebrated a lot of special weeks. One, of course, was Tourism and Travel Week, and this week is Economic Development Week, and what we like to always remind everybody of is that we have several business incentive programs that our businesses can apply for by going to chooseflagstaff.com. And we also have a successful sustainable automotive rebate, and that was spoken about a little bit by the mayor last week as well. And we had 4 more of our residents that were able to take receive that incentive, which is very amazing. And for now, I think I'll keep it at that. I know you have some long agenda items, but I wanted to thank Councilmember Salas again for recognizing what a very important week this is for attraction, retention, expansion of our business sector. Thank you.
Ms. Heidi Hansen, would you like to mention the cafe conversations with the economic development team this week?
Councilmember Salas, I was pulling those up so I can give better detail. I don't have them right in front of me, but if you don't mind, I'll offer it in the chat for the council.
Yeah, I actually pulled that up there. Tomorrow at White Dove.
Oh, thank you.
At 8:30 a.m. will be the Economic Development Week coffee. That'll be for Wednesday the 11th at White Dove, and then Thursday the 12th, 8:30 to 9:30 is Late for the Train downtown.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Councilmember Salas, I was caught off a little caught off guard, and I apologize. I didn't have that right in front of me. Thank you for recognizing that, and I hope that you will join us.
It's time for fika, Ms. Heidi. 3:30.
It certainly is.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Interim Deputy City Manager. All right. With that, we're ready to move along here to the guest of the hour, Northern Arizona University update, agenda item number 7, with President Jose Luis Cruz Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon, everyone. Such a great privilege to be here with all of you. As you all know, I've been now living in Flagstaff for a little bit over a year and serving as NAU's 17th president for a little bit over 10 months. And I must say that every day still feels like a great adventure and the right place for me and my family to be at. Thank you so much for the warm reception that we have received. Since I've arrived, I've also learned how connected our university is with not only the city of Flagstaff, but the other 20 sites across the state in which we have the privilege to serve those communities. And I come here today to give you an update on what we've been up to in the past 10 and a half months, but also to restate our commitment to ensuring that everything that we do at NAU is of mutual benefit to the community that we also serve. And with that, I'll start by a thank you. Thank you for being game to having a photo op in the steps of City Hall on Giving Day for NAU. With your support, we were able to receive over 1,400 gifts, totaling over $500,000 that will go to important initiatives that serve our students. For example, the Lumberjack Emergency Assistance Fund and Louis Cupboard. So thank you very much for that. It was a record year for us, and we look forward to continued collaboration moving forward. Most of the collective energy of our university community over the last 8 months in particular has been directed towards the development of a new 3-year roadmap where we try to articulate the aspirations of our university community and present them in a way that would then allow us to come back and develop some signature initiatives that we will be talking about more in the fall that when taken together as a whole will show that we are in fact advancing the strategic priorities that are articulated in our strategic plan. And so after 8 months, about a couple of weeks ago, we were able to publish our 3-year NAU 2025 Elevating Excellence Plan. It has 7 strategic priorities and 29 components to them. But as its vision, the North Star of it is ensuring that NAU becomes or is recognized as a preeminent engine of opportunity nationally for the work that we do locally in Arizona to ensure that all students, regardless of their background, have access to the excellent education that NAU provides so that they can contribute to and benefit from the economic growth of our great state. And part of those priorities that are articulated in this document, 7 of them, one of them is specifically around our community engagement. And you will see there that we have really worked to articulate in very succinct way what it is that we hope to will happen over the next 3 years, specifically on that front. And I will talk a little bit more about some specifics in a minute. We will be bringing this document before the Arizona Board of Regents in June, and we expect approval to move forward with it. And of course, we have been, even as we have been developing the plan, also implementing policies and practices that will allow us to set a good foundation for once it's approved, we can really hit the ground running. An example of that is our Access to Excellence program that we announced recently. So as you all know, the state's economy is booming. It's among the fastest growing in the country. But 7 out of every 10 new jobs that are going to be coming in require some form of post-secondary education. And we also know that the state of Arizona is fairly low on the list in terms of educational attainment, the percentage of people in Arizona that have a college degree. So in order to ensure that we can broaden participation not only to education, but also to this new economy that's taking shape for more Arizonans, we developed the Access to Excellence Initiative, which basically is a commitment that NAU, in managing its $400 million of federal, state, and institutional financial aid, will do so in a way that will allow us to say up front to every prospective student that if they come from a household under $65,000 a year in annual income, that their financial aid package will cover all tuition costs. So it will be tuition free. Now that number is important because, as you all know, that's about the median household income. So we're saying that 1 out of every 2 households now has access to the excellent education of NAU in an affordable way. Of course, this is a mechanism to ensure that affordability or the perspectives around affordability do not restrain prospective students from applying and even developing the aspirations for higher ed. But our intent is that this will ultimately lead us to a place where we can expand access in the 20 sites that we have across the state, not just in Flagstaff. As you all know, NAU has a large footprint. We have our Yuma campus, and we have the Phoenix Biomedical campus with over 400 graduate students in that campus alone. And so we want to meet students where they are, and make sure that the programs that we're offering in each one of these communities is not only affordable, but is tailored to the needs of that community. So very excited about that program. Also, in order to eliminate some friction that we see across the state in getting access to NAU, we also entered into a pilot admissions program whereby our admissions requirements are now aligned with the high school graduation requirements, and that was not the case before. Prior, we required 16 core courses and a 3.0 GPA to be assured admission. Of course, if you didn't meet that, you could still apply and be considered. But for sure, if you had 16 courses and a 3.0, you were admitted to NAU. The problem is that 18% of high schools across the state did not provide all 16 courses. And that impacted about 50,000 high schoolers every year. And so what we've said now is, you work hard and you meet the requirements of your high school with the courses that they are delivering to meet the Arizona high school standards. And with a 3.0 GPA, we will assure you admission. So we're very much on our way to broadening participation and making sure that we provide an affordable education. We've also, as part of our setting the foundation for the strategic initiatives, we committed on Earth Day to carbon neutrality by 2030. So we did so knowing that we have missed the mark in the past, that we have stated deadlines by which to reach this in the past and fell short, and committed to making sure that we have an actionable climate action plan in place early in the fall that will allow us to have milestones, specific investments, and strategies that may change along the way as we move forward, but that gives credibility to our aspiration to be carbon neutral by 2030. Very excited about that work. Connected to that, another important initiative that we launched recently and will be unfolding over the next 12 to 18 months is an effort on the Sustainable Smart Campus Master Plan. The last time NAU did a master plan for its land use and facilities was in 2010. And so we think it's a very opportune moment now to revisit, not only because a lot has changed. We have the carbon neutrality goal, so the sustainability piece. We've also seen some enrollment losses in the last several years, in part because of very large graduating classes. Our programs have a lot of demand. It's more of a throughput situation right now. And also we have instituted a hybrid first workplace that will ultimately lead to recapturing some square footage that can be repurposed for other things. So this Sustainable Smart Campus Master Plan has been launched. There will be several opportunities. It will be a very participatory process. The consultant that will be leading it will be developing several opportunities for the community to weigh in. So it will not just be the university thinking about how we want to use our land and our space and our resources better, but we want to do it in partnership with the city of Flagstaff in this case to make sure that we have that voice in there. And finally, I will say that all of this, these are just some examples real quickly that connect to the city. It's all based on the fact that we recognize that at the end of the day, and some of you have heard me say this before, we've had a chance to meet many of you, that, coming new into the community, it's striking to me to realize that 25,600 households within the city limits, 53% of the households within the city limits have an NIU alum in them. And that 35%, one out of every three employees at NAU, one out of every three are alums. And so it sort of begs the question, if there are tensions, why is that? Because we need to work together as the one community that we really are. So very much looking forward to the work ahead. Part of that effort was the institution of a 16-hour annual community engagement time policy. So all our employees now have 16 hours that they can devote to community service paid by NAU. And we will be looking for ways to really capture that in an impactful way rather than one-offs. More on that in the future. But just as another example of how we're making sure that the relationship we have that has made Flagstaff one of the best college towns in America continues to move forward. So thank you very much for the time. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. President. Really appreciate the update, and the work that you have done in such a short amount of time is just amazing. This new program, especially for those who are under 65,000 in household income, providing those opportunities is huge. Not just for us as a city, but for Arizona as a whole, and as an example for so many other college campuses to also follow, and that this can happen, that we can create opportunities. And just really appreciate your leadership on that front, as well as many others. I do have a couple questions, but I want to open up to the rest of council here. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I am an NAU alumni and very proud to say so. And I just want to say, honestly, thank you. I sense a big difference in how we're doing things, and I appreciate your commitment to our community. I feel like you are really working to make us one, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I wanted to mention I'm really excited about your carbon neutrality plan and how well we can align our efforts. Obviously, we ain't going to be able to do this alone, and you serve 30% of our entire population.
Yes.
And with that, I would really love to be able to get our sustainability director in front of you personally to showcase kind of what we're doing, a short presentation, and then have some follow-up conversations on where we can align our efforts, because collaboratively we can do much more on this front than otherwise, and it's going to be essential for us to do so.
Definitely, we will welcome that, and also as we progress in our development or refinement, we do have an action plan, but we want to make it more actionable with accountability built in. As we build that up, it would be really good to be able to bounce it off the city and the sustainability director to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, I think we're in a good place, and now with the plans that came out, I believe in March that I was reading, it's just an exciting time to have you as a partner and NAU as a partner now to do on this effort as well as many others. So I'm looking forward to future conversations.
Excellent.
Councilman Raslin.
I'll piggyback on that. Hi, Dr. Cruz. Really wonderful to have you here. Love to see you as often as you can make an appearance. I just wanted to follow up on the excitement for your carbon neutrality plan. I know folks at NAU have put a lot of work into that, and I know that you were excited about it, but you wanted it to have teeth. You wanted it to be a real living, breathing document and not just something stuffed in a drawer. And I really appreciate that sentiment, and I think you guys are going to achieve great measures of success along that path towards carbon neutrality. I also I wanted to touch base with you on something that has been an issue in the past, and we're just wondering where the opportunities are for more alignment here as we move forward, and that's with our Rio to Flag flood control efforts. NAU is right in the footprint of where a massive 500-year event the impacts would be felt very, very greatly. In the past, we have felt that we're working without the partnership of NAU on a lot of that infrastructure stuff and a lot of that planning and a lot of the execution of that. And I realize, it's easy to get squeamish about some of the investments that are required for this, whether it's monetary or elbow grease or whatever. But I just wanted to touch base on that and really hope that you guys are at the table with our flood control efforts. There's a lot of good momentum happening right now with the Rio to Flag project. Things are gelling. There's a lot of synergy. And we'd love to see NAU at the table and, frankly, ponying up in some fashion or another to make that project a success. The impacts will be felt one way or the other on NAU campus, and it would be a wonderful opportunity to have you guys in the front row talking about that. And I'll just finish by, you can respond to that if you want, but I'll finish my comments by saying I just really think the Board of Regents hit it out of the park by bringing you on board.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you on board. They very much made the right choice. I appreciate the public input that they sought as they discerned for this very large decision. I was just talking to the city manager about the opportunity we have to put someone in place at Water Services who will be there for the long term and who can think in new ways and really bridge the gap between the past and the future. And I see you sitting in that divide, standing in that divide with a great deal of promise and opportunity, and just really excited and couldn't be more pleased personally.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind words. And yes, we would be happy to be part of the flood control efforts. I will talk to Josh to educate myself a little bit more on what has transpired and where we're headed, and we're happy to collaborate. Thank you.
Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've always thought and manifested that Northern Arizona University is an integral partner of not only the city of Flagstaff as an organization, but our beloved mountain town itself from the time it started as a city. And up to this date, NAU is an integral partner in terms of workforce training, workforce development, economic development, community investment, and community vitality. As manifested, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Josh Mayer is our chair of our Economic Collaborative of Northern Arizona. One of your staff with international education, Cesar Flores, is our president for our Flagstaff Sister Cities International effort. So I just look forward to this energized leadership as displayed by your leadership, sir, and looking forward to galvanizing the partnership and collaboration. We had this conversation when I met you in person. Puerto Rico and the Philippines have something in common because we were under Spain, and in 1898, due to the Treaty of Paris, the U.S. government paid $20 million to buy the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam. So we were under the American Commonwealth for 47 years. However, in the Philippines, Spanish is not spoken because we're made of 7,000 islands, and only elite families were able to send their kids to school in Spain. And we have 21 languages and 200 dialects. With that, I'd like to say thank you from the two languages I speak in the Philippines. Maraming salamat po. Dakal salamat. With that, I give you a grateful heart.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Very kind.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. We have Councilmember Shimoni and then Councilmember McCarthy.
Hey, President Cruz. Thank you so much for your presentation today and your update and all your great work. And also, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your service to our community and all the work you both are working on. We really appreciate it, as you know. And just had a couple comments for you, President Cruz. So as you know, before you came, there was a lot of history with NAU in regards to housing and concern around housing. And I know that you and I talked about this in our one-on-one, but I just wanted to bring it up again here. I, as a council member, fully support and encourage you and NAU to build housing on campus. I think you'd have the community support 100%. And any consideration of land trust projects with Habitat, I think would be so cool. Starter homes that would really build equity for students, I think would go a long way. And I know that that this resonates with you, but I just wanted to say that. Is there any comments on that front that you'd like to share with us, President Cruz?
Sure. I can mention that as part of the Sustainable Master campus master planning process, we are looking precisely at, how can we better serve our students? There's a lot of demand for on-campus housing. And as we move forward, we want to do the best we can to meet that demand. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is, as we're also still in early stages of considering how we can be good partners to the city as we deal with this issue that's of affordable housing that is creating challenges for all of us in Flagstaff. And so we have some ideas. I'm not ready to go on the record yet, but I will say that we're interested in being good partners in not only attending to our student housing needs, but also how can we contribute to the broader housing issue in Flagstaff.
That's great. Thank you. Another topic that I brought up in our one-on-one that I'm going to add some water to, a seed that I planted that I'm going to water right now with you is, I've dived into our crash data at the city quite a bit in regards to bike and pedestrians collisions with vehicles primarily. And it seems like the data shows that these are typically males between the ages of 18 and 22. And so that makes me think that, and it's around the Milton corridor, Beaver and San Francisco and Butler. So I love what you all are doing by charging a significant amount for parking on campus, basically traffic demand management 101. And basically, providing folks access to buses. It's a great way to get cars off the road. But by doing that, we need to also think about their safety and their needs in regards to keeping them healthy and safe. So an idea I had, President Cruz, was just to plant a seed with you again in regards to communication around best practices and how to ride a bike safely, to be seen, helmet wearing, lights. And then also the right turn by a vehicle is primarily where the collisions are occurring. And I just think that if we engage the student population with information, these numbers will go down, and we'll do what we can on the city side. But just wanted to share that with you. I have, being an NAU alum myself and a cyclist as a student, I didn't know about all these points. And I've been hit by cars, so just wanted to share that with you. There's a lot of students that are engaging with cars in a not so good way, and that was one other thing. And then that obviously ties to our climate goals and getting people further out of cars and reducing vehicle mile travels. And then the last thing, and then I'll pass the mic on to whoever's next. It'd be great to see Louis better represent the population of the students we're serving. And I know that I've brought that up with you too, but gosh, how cool would it be if Louis was, of different cultures and different backgrounds in a rotating fashion. Any thoughts on that to share?
Well, I will say that the comments around the bicycle safety, as well as how we create a more inclusive environment, including the way that we represent ourselves, are things that are top of mind right now as part of the strategic roadmap that I mentioned earlier. Diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice are themes that run throughout the plan. And so as we start now working towards implementing some signature initiatives that will show that we're in fact advancing the plan, I think some of the ideas that you have mentioned will come into play in one way or another.
Great. Music to my ears. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarthy.
Mayor, President Cruz, a long list of great things you're doing, climate initiatives, really appreciate that. But I will say the one thing that really sticks out in my mind is that your efforts to get higher education availability to people that might otherwise not be able to afford it. Education is the way you get ahead in our society, as you know. So I just really want to thank you for that, and I'm hoping that those efforts turn out to be successful.
Thank you.
So good luck on that one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember House.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for all the good things that you're doing as part of the community. What really stood out to me was the discussion of community engagement and those 16 annual hours to serve. That's such an important thing, and there's so many different touch points that can come together through that in terms of housing, in terms of DEI, in terms of so many of the programs that NAU is doing. So thank you very much for including that, and I certainly hope to continue in conversations with you as part of that with the neighborhoods and with different organizations that are working towards those
Thank you so
goals.
much.
Thank you, Councilmember House. One thing I did want to bring up, it's probably a little too early for these discussions, but I do understand that you are looking for potentially developing preschool education for some of your employees and providing an environment in that. And I know this is super early in your stages of things, but as those discussions progress, I would really like to us to consider mutually for our staff as a city, as well as the staff at NAU, to collaborate on that front to provide early childhood education and care for children of our employees, because I think that would be an amazing thing for us as a city, and obviously the School of Education that founded NAU. I think that might be grounds for a real great partnership in future fiscal years.
I love it. To your point, yes, we are exploring. It's a significant a need for our faculty, staff, and students. And if there are ways that we can do it such that the scale allows for broader participation, we're all for it. And so definitely, we're moving in over the summer. I think we'll get some more traction as things become clearer. We'll make sure that through Josh, we have a connection to see what opportunities there may be to broaden the scope of the work.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I am not seeing, Councilmember Salas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed a couple of points that I want to amplify. Again, strengthening the potentials for collaboration and partnership with NAU's involvement in our regional transportation planning. I believe NAU has a seat in our management committee for our Metro Plan Greater Flagstaff, our regional transportation planning, metropolitan planning organization, as well as really just amplifying on collaborative projects for workforce housing for NAU workforce and City of Flagstaff workforce and workforce of Flagstaff in general. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, thank you for your time, and yeah, looking forward to future discussions.
All right, go Jacks.
Yeah. And I will say, with the 53% statistic, I think we got 53%, well, more up here on council for NAU alum, right? We got 4 of us? Yeah, there we go. Go team.
I have one question. Can I, since I did not make it to be a lumberjack, I'm a graduate of University of the Philippines, can I qualify to be a lumberjack cheerleader?
Well, we'll make it happen.
All right, thank you so much. All right. 1 second here, pulling it up. That does bring us down to agenda item number 8, presentation and discussion on development listening tour.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor. I need to pull the presentation up. I apologize, I didn't do this ahead of time.
No problem.
CJ's here to back me up if I can't find it. There it is. Let's see here. It's somewhere in this menu of files here. Check this. There it is.
Just by CJ's presence, things work
I found
electronically.
it suddenly when he was lingering behind me. All right, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Folk. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Flagstaff, and appreciate you having me on your agenda this afternoon I'm excited to talk about our development listening tour and some information about how we do development review, who's involved, what some of our efforts are to continually improve our customer service and other things. And so this was an exciting opportunity for us to get out into the community and talk to our customers. And we really did this in cooperation with the Greater Flagstaff Chamber of Commerce. And so a couple of years ago, there was a joint meeting, and they had one of their members up, and the member was talking about going through the development process and getting permits. And so after that meeting, I started talking with Shane Dilley, who was our deputy city manager, and we came up with this idea of a development listening tour. Let's go out and talk to our customers. And it's been done before. Typically, some of our city managers have done it, some of our deputies have done it and come back and reported to community development. But this time we decided to include some other people. And so just quickly, I'm gonna go over a little background information, talk about the proposal, who participated, give a summary of what we heard, and then talk about next steps and then see what questions all of you have. So I really can't talk about development review and our teams in community development and engineering without talking about our response really to the last 2 years. And so I'm really proud of how the team came together. You know, I'm not gonna relive history, but all of a sudden one day we were closing City Hall and we all had to figure out how we're gonna continue to provide services, right? So I think we took one day to come up with a plan. And in terms of building permits and development applications, the response was, well, let's send an email to Becky Cardiff. Becky is our development services manager. She manages our front counter. And so for probably the first few months, that was, you know, emailed Becky, and then it would get entered into the system. Because typically people would come in and drop it off at the counter, but City Hall was closed, right? And so we then eventually launched some new technology, and that's what I'm trying to capture on this slide. And, you know, service delivery has changed. We are doing everything through our Citizens Access portal. So after we stopped saying email Becky, we did finally launch this Citizens Access portal, and it allows people to submit everything digitally, their plans, their applications, pay their fees. Some other technology that we've gone to really over the last 2 years is 100% digital plan review. So we were starting to transition over to this, but we've really just gotten rid of paper altogether. And so we used to have actually shelves in several locations with big rolls of paper plans. We've gotten rid of the shelves. So we are past the point of no return on this. And so it was a long time coming, but I think the pandemic kind of forced us to get there a little sooner. And so that's created immense efficiencies, and it's just more consistent with, you know, everything we're doing. And then remote work was another big adjustment over the last 2 years, really. You know, we had our challenges, let's be honest about it. Not having people in the office was a new way of working. But we worked through those challenges. I think we're providing an incredibly high level of customer service. And we were able to do that really during the last 2 years. And so I'm very proud of the continuity of service we provided during the pandemic. And I mentioned Becky. There was incredible leadership. One was Becky Cardiff. Also in current planning, Alexander Pucciarelli, Tiffany Antol. You know, it takes the whole team. Everybody in community development is what makes it work, and engineering and all of our other partners, but it always takes the leadership. And so the leadership of those three has been amazing. And then this all happened during a period of growth, in a period where we started having staffing challenges as well. So on top of all the other things that were going on, we had people retire, people moving on, and it's been extremely hard to hire new people. We've had a plan review position open for over a year in our building safety department. When we started the pandemic, we had just had 2 retirements in our current planning group, which were senior, I would call them senior planners, due to their years of experience, not necessarily their age. And so we lost incredible experience. 2 folks, Neil Gullickson and Elaine Everett, that retired really right as the pandemic started. And then we weren't able to backfill that, right? And so the current planning team has carried an amazing load during this time. We're very close to being back to full staffing. We're excited that Tiffany Antol is going to be our new zoning code manager, so we will have to fill her senior planner position. But we've got a new planner starting next week, and that would put us back to full staffing. We hadn't been at full staffing in current planning this whole time during the pandemic. Again, just big challenges with the workforce. And there's a lot of people on this team I'm going to talk about, and I think that challenge has been experienced across divisions, across programs, right? And so the same pressure has been on engineering and public works and water services. This is why I have my water. I can't believe you're going to be full staff. We might be. We might be. We're very close. And so I think we responded very well, and this is kind of where we've been working really the last 2 years. And then the timing of me sharing this information, the interviews were done last year. We did them really between March and September of last year, which is really about halfway between when the pandemic started and where we are today. Certainly the comments we received predate the pandemic. It wasn't all about how we were managing the pandemic. We heard concerns about our service before the pandemic through these interviews, but I do feel like we're doing things so differently now. In a way, we've kind of hit the reset button, right? We're never going to go back to the way we used to do things. And I mentioned this at the budget retreat. We have better technology, we have better capacity, and we've got the right people in the positions right now. I'm really happy about our team. It's an amazing team we've put together. And so I did hold off because, frankly, I don't think I could ask our staff to make these kind of changes when they were feeling, frankly, underwater, right? The combination of the pandemic, the workload continued to increase. Everyone can see that this has been a period of growth in Flagstaff. You can see that around town. Really, for the last 4 years, every year has been busier than the previous in terms of the volume of permits, the valuation of permits. And so we managed through these staffing challenges during that time. We've been able to fill some key positions, so I think now is the right time to bring this forward, right? And we've got a team that's going to start working on what we've heard through this listening tour. Some of the key positions we filled, obviously getting Michelle McNulty as our planning director has been huge. I didn't want to take this on without getting that position filled. We've had similar vacancies in housing that Sarah Darr's been able to fill. She did a reorganization of the housing section, and that's all in place. And so the time is really right. And then some other things that really tie into what I'm going to be talking about tonight are our interdivision staff, which is the development review process. We did a chartering in February because we have so many new people, not just in community development and engineering, but other divisions that I'm going to talk about. And so we really need to recharter that group and talk about what is the goal of IDS, how do we operate, how do we be successful. We've got an action plan that came out of that charter in February. I'm going to talk a little bit about that a little later. We've got our 10-year housing plan implementation. We did a review of our affordable housing incentives and the carbon neutrality plan implementation. All of these things really tie into what we do in community development and reviewing applications. So the timing is right. And so what was the proposal? Again, I reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and asked, let's do this together. Get a couple of your representatives, some of your members, along with city staff. We'll go out and talk to our customers, right? And so I put together a proposal. It was very simple. Tell us about your experience doing business with the city of Flagstaff. I think we had a great representation of different people we do business with. We set up hour-and-a-half time slots twice a month. And then we just put the word out there. We emailed a lot of people that we do business with. The chamber put it out to all their members. So we cast a pretty wide net. We did a press release. We put it on our social media. And so we ended up doing 9 interviews between March and September. We had 16 participants. I've given you the professions of the people we talked to. I think we were extremely well represented from the early planning all the way to construction and certificate of occupancy. We had a good representation of all those steps. And then the people who did the interviews, we had 2 folks from the chamber again, Guillermo Cortez, who's a local engineer. I'm sure many of you know Guillermo. He's with SWI. And Mark Woodson. Those 2 volunteered from the chamber to be on the listening panel, along with Shane, Rick Barrett, and myself. These are the questions we provided ahead of time. The first couple, we're trying to get a feel for, what's your experience? What are some of the applications you've done with the city of Flagstaff? And then we just asked for a rating. Not everyone gave us a rating, but I did average them out. We ended up at 3.49 of the people who gave us a rating between 1 and 5. We asked them to give some information. Why did you give us the rating? What can we do in Flagstaff to improve our customer service? We asked about our codes and procedures. What are 3 things you would eliminate or alter if you had that ability? Do you have examples from other communities of things we should be doing here in Flagstaff? What can we do to improve efficiency and the cost of applications? We hear a lot about the cost of doing projects in Flagstaff. And then we focused on housing. If you do housing projects, what requirements would you change to lower the cost of dwelling units? And then kind of a catch-all, what have we not talked about? And so I've given you a compilation of all the notes. There were 2 of us were taking notes during these interviews. And I just compiled them all underneath the questions. And I just want to give a couple kind of disclaimers, I guess. I consider them unfiltered, so I pretty much transmitted them the way we recorded them. I removed names and specific projects because we wanted to have some assurance of anonymous comments. But they're pretty much unfiltered. They haven't been fact-checked, right? It wasn't our job to disagree. We were listening or explaining why something worked out the way it did. There's always two sides to every story, but we were there to listen. And I just accept what I heard and what can we do to ensure this doesn't happen again? Let's just accept that this happened, let's say. But they haven't been fact-checked. The interviews were conducted last year, as I mentioned. And then we're well on our way of addressing some of the things we heard. The other thing I want to give you a little primer on so you can read these comments and understand them a little bit, this is important, are some of the terms that are in here. And so interdivision staff, or IDS, this is our development review team, right? And so it's current planning, comprehensive planning, transportation engineering, development engineering. You've got public works, people from streets. You've got water services, so utilities, stormwater, sustainability's at the table. We've got housing at the table. And so it represents a lot of people within the organization, the IDS review. The single point of contact is our process for managing these cases or applications. We consider it project management. And so we always have a lead, and that's our single point of contact. And so on the right is a typical process for like a greenfield development, from pre-application all the way to certificate of occupancy. And so for the first, from concept plan through site plan, the single point of contact is a planner, one of our current planners. They're the SPOC, right? And so they're the ones getting all the comments from all the team members I just mentioned, and they're putting those comments together and they're delivering it to the applicant. And so they're the lead project manager. As we move into construction and they get into building permits, civil plan review, the SPOC moves over to our development engineering side of the process. And so that development engineer becomes the SPOC. But the same people are involved really from concept plan through C of O. We've got all these people I've mentioned go out and do inspections, on some of the standards we have in our zoning code, our engineering standards, the stormwater standards. And so it really is a team that works on a project from beginning to end. I talk about codes and standards in some of the notes, and it's just a generic term I've used. So codes and standards could include the zoning code, could be the engineering standards, which are in our city code, just like the zoning code, the stormwater requirements, the building codes for sure when you get into permitting, and all the various codes that our different partners have, our internal partners. And so I've used it generically in these notes. And then concept and site plan, this is a process that every project, everything but a single family home essentially has to go through a concept and then some through a site plan. And this is where that IDS team gets involved, right? And so the concept plan is intended to be a high-level review. There's very specific information we ask for, but the intention of the concept plan is to let the applicant make a decision. Do they want to proceed into concept plan or not? Are there any big ticket items that they hadn't identified earlier in the process? And so it is supposed to be very conceptual. Then you move into site plan where you get into much more, if you have architectural drawings of the building, landscaping plans, complete site plan showing your parking, your stormwater, some of the engineering standards. And so we get into site plan and it gets more specific. And so like I said, this is kind of a typical process for a greenfield development. You can start with a free pre-application meeting, go through concept and site plan. Once you have a site plan approved, you can go into building permits and civil plans. And so you could submit your construction plans to our building safety department, which is Amy Palmer, now is Amy Hagan. Just so you know, we're gonna have two Amy Hagans in our organization now. So Amy Hagan, our building official, they submit building permits to her team. They also submit civil plans to our development engineering team. So this is for all the utilities, the public improvements that are required. And so it goes through this, this process all the way through inspections. And like I said, depending on the project, the development engineer is going to be the SPOC on getting the certificate of occupancy, which is the last step. So all these folks have been involved come out and do kind of a final inspection, right? Does it meet the architectural design that was approved? Do they have enough, the parking they were going to do? Do they have the landscaping? Is it dark sky lighting? Have they met all the things that they've said they were going to do in the permits, essentially? And so the development engineer coordinates all that certificate of occupancy. On single family homes, we do it a little differently. It's the building inspector because they didn't go through a site plan. The building inspector is the one who coordinates the certificate of occupancy. And then we do have some projects that go to concept and then right into plan review. They skip site plan. So things like change of uses, additions to existing businesses, TI, what we call tenant improvements, interior remodels. Some of these types of projects, we take them through from concept into right to building permit. And so again, we do try to use the process to have efficiencies and ensure that the projects are meeting the codes that have been adopted without taking people through unnecessary reviews. All right, so let's get into my comment summation. So I provided 15 pages of comments organized by the questions. And rather than go through all those comments, I'm just gonna I've summarized them into what I believe can be captured in about 8 of these. Many of the comments would fall into one of these categories. And so the first thing we heard about was our customer service, right? How are we doing? And I would say overall, we got very positive comments. There were negative comments. There were people who were frustrated, hard to get a hold of people, feeling like they would make a call or an email, not hear back, from folks. Some frustration about use of the code, and I'll get into that a little more. But I would say overall, I think the customer service comments I think there were more positive comments than negative. This is something we all care about very much in community development and engineering. Customer service is very important to us. It's one of our values. It's something you're going to see in the IDS action plan. A lot of the things we're doing is about customer service, right? There's also a lot of positive comments about customer service. People are very available. Staff does a great job of trying to get us through the process. I think our customers realize we ask a lot of a project in Flagstaff. That's one of the first things I tell people when they come to town and say they're thinking about doing a project. I just say, we ask a lot of our projects. And so customer service is something we're definitely addressing first and foremost, I think, in our action plan. The idea that the applicant needs an advocate, that was a comment that came up, and that having the SPOC to have more authority to actually, when maybe there's a disagreement internally or maybe a requirement from one program maybe conflicts with a requirement from another program, there were comments that the SPOC should be the one to kind of arbitrate that, and that it felt like you needed a champion for your project. I wouldn't say we're not a champion, but we are a project manager. We do expect the SPOC to try to work out disagreements and come to some direction that we're going to follow when we provide comments to our applicant. We talk about getting to yes. That's part of the culture of community development, is how do we get to yes? We are here to let applicants be successful, right? Our job is not to try to stop development. Our job is to enable it and make sure it complies with our requirements, right? And so we are here to work for the success of the applicant. That was something we heard about. A lot of comments about reviewing the process and the requirements in the process, looking for efficiencies, right? And so we've started this, going through our checklists. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the IDS action plan. So we have started to review all of our checklists, the submittal requirements. Are there things that we don't need? When do we need it? Who needs it? Who's going to be reviewing this? And then are there things we can, one that came up a lot was concept plan. The idea that we're asking too much at concept plan. It's supposed to be conceptual. And so I think we're going to take a close look at that. Are there things we can eliminate from the concept plan submittal? Consistency across codes and how they work together. So this is a little different than number 5, which is consistent implementation. But this really speaks to the issue of, do the engineering standards work with the zoning code, right? Do the stormwater requirements work with the engineering standards? And so we do have some conflicts there, and we need to consistently work on getting rid of those conflicts. We kind of manage through them now, but there are amendments we know that we need to make. But this was a comment that came up about sometimes it just feels like, do you talk to each other? Sometimes we get that, right? Because one side of the house is asking for this, and somebody else over here is asking for this, and they don't, So we're always striving to make sure our codes work together. Consistent implementation, in my mind, is more about, that planner, that engineer, whoever's applying whatever code it is, are they doing it the same way their teammate is doing it, right? We always have to strive for consistency. These codes are very thick. You read it, you think you understand it. Somebody else reads it and tells you something totally different. It's not always really clear, right? As much as we strive for it to be. And so this is just a challenge of the work we do in planning and community development everywhere I've been, is consistent implementation. Some of it has to do with, new staff members coming on board. There's a big learning curve, right? And have we documented how we're gonna deal with this issue, right? And so we've been good at that over the years. I think we're getting back to it. And all those things will help with implementation. You heard comments about what we ask for in our projects. So I put number 6 as community discussion on priorities and potential trade-offs. And we do hear this comment a lot about, you want us to deliver affordable housing, but you have all these requirements on site improvements, materials. I think the Foundation for Senior Living project that you reviewed, I think last month, where we have this new incentive where you could get, allowances from our requirements. A lot of this fell into this category. They were saying, look, if you want us to deliver affordable housing, we can't meet all these requirements, right? We're gonna do the best we can to meet the spirit of it. And so that really requires a community discussion in my mind. Another one that came up a lot is resource protection, our resource protection standards and how we implement them. So for resource protection, we look at tree resources, slopes, and stormwater. And we have ways in the code that some things you just have to preserve, other things you can disturb. And so that comment comes up a lot. It's hard to deliver affordability when we also have to comply with resource protection standards. Other things we heard about, we have site standards, things like building forward. We really, again, try to accomplish a lot. And the whole idea between building forward is about bike and pedestrian. It all comes back, and we've been doing this for many, many years in Flagstaff, but it comes back to creating a place for things other than cars. Bikes and pedestrians, having a building forward creates a more comfortable environment for that bicyclist and pedestrian on the sidewalk. Having parking not be the dominant feature when you drive by a project, right? And so you'll see we have a tradition of building forward in Flagstaff, a lot of the older Route 66 buildings. And so we ask that of our new projects as well. But that's a comment we hear a lot about design standards, so materials of buildings. So again, I think we need to have a community discussion on that. Number 7, community discussion on how infrastructure is provided. And so for larger projects, what I call regional projects like Timber Sky, Canyon del Rio, they have a large contribution they have to make for offsite improvements, right? Building infrastructure, roads, utilities, sewer and water. And so what we do is we do an analysis of the project, we identify the impacts, and then we ask that project to put in those impacts, right? Address those impacts, either through an infrastructure improvement or maybe a payment. The alternative method that comes up a lot are impact fees, right? And so rather than having to negotiate, usually it's in a development agreement, negotiate these offsite improvements and what that's gonna cost, they'd rather pay an impact fee, which is a rooftop fee, right? And so the state of Arizona highly regulates impact fees. We have 2 impact fees in place for public safety. There's one for police and one for fire. We have looked at transportation impact fees over the years. You can do it for transportation, you can do it for parks. There's a variety of things, but it's a very involved process. Some of you have been through it. I think Councilman McCarthy has been on since we've renewed our impact fees for public safety. It's a very involved process, but it is an option. And so basically they pay at the time they pull the permit with an impact fee versus having to put it in paying at the time they put in the subdivision or the infrastructure. And the idea is you pay an impact fee and then the city's putting this infrastructure in. So it's a big shift in the model of how we do things here, but it's a comment that comes up a lot. Again, a very important community discussion. Our regional plan says development pays for itself. And that can cover a lot of things. And so both of those lead into number 8, which is just a review of our codes and our standards. And we do have some money in this budget that's coming up to do this, review our zoning code as well as some other codes for housing and sustainability measures is what it's been budgeted under. But again, this is what ties all this together, I think. And so reviewing our codes and standards, do we want to consider different standards for different types of projects? What can we do to impact affordability? Are we asking too much? Are there trade-offs we can make? This is an important community discussion that we're going to have, I think, over the next couple of years. And so I'll pause there. I had invited some of the other participants. I think Rick is here, but I know Mark and Guillermo are not here. This is where I was going to pause and let them come up and kind of give you their impression of what they heard. I am going to be meeting with the Chamber of Commerce next week. I'm going to be doing a similar presentation next Thursday to their It's the one that meets at 7:30 on Thursday morning. I don't think it's government affairs, but it's one of their committees. I don't think it's their board. And so I'm going to go back and report to them as well. Do you have any questions then about what we heard? I'll get into next steps. This might be a good place to pause. Specific comments you read or anything I've talked about so far?
I'm not seeing any, Councilmember McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Dan. I think in a way, at least in my mind, I started this discussion. Because I remember back when I was campaigning, 3 years ago, whatever it was, running into various developers, and they all seemed to have kind of a common thread. And they hadn't been talking to each other. They were just talking out of their own experience with me. And I was one of the people that says, hey, we need to go do a listening tour. And thank you for doing it. Yeah. And I did read every one of those comments over the weekend. And thank you for providing the long list. One that really came to my mind is a single point of contact. Now, the way you guys do it, the single point is really about 3 different points because it changes during what phase of the contract you're in. And
two spots.
2 spots. Well, that might make sense. But I'm thinking back to when I was an aerospace engineer. From the time that we did the proposal to the time that we had field problems, it was the same person. And we had one single point of contact through the whole process. And that really worked well. And so I don't, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job because you're into it, and I just looking at it from the outside. But I think if we can stress that single point of contact and maybe even amplify on it, I think that might be very useful. Yeah, and my other thought is, and you're going to get to this in the next part of your presentation, is that this is the input, and now you're going to work on the output, is like, what do we need to do? That might, like you mentioned, it might be we need to change some of the codes. But we maybe need to review the codes to simplify them and to make them more friendly for building. I mean, sometimes people think of developers as the enemy. The truth is, they're the ones that build us the houses. Nobody else builds us houses except developers. So we need to listen to them, and I know you are, and I appreciate that. You obviously did. And I really do appreciate that, and I look forward to, okay, great, where do we go from here? So I'll leave it at that for now, but anyway, thank you for doing this listening tour. I think it was worth the time for the community and for your staff.
I agree.
Okay. All right.
We
With
do have
that,
some more material. Do you want me to keep going?
yeah, please proceed.
All right. I'm done. See you now. What happened? Okay. So next steps. I have introduced this material to the interdivision staff team, IDS, very briefly. I'm going to go back and talk a little more with them with the support of our, what I'm going to call our IDS leadership team that we've put together. And so we need to do that. We just ran out of time at our meeting last week. And so I do want to talk about this in more detail with all the different partners at the table. We're going to be coordinating some of this with budget priorities that are in this upcoming budget that you're going to be asked to adopt here that goes into effect July 1. We've got support in there to do plan implementation, and this covers both the 10-year housing plan and the carbon neutrality plan. And a big part of that is code review. And so this is, it is going to be budgeted, I think, in housing and sustainability, but it's really kind of a zoning code exercise primarily. That's where a lot of our regulations are found. Engineering standards as well. We've done some preliminary work on affordable housing incentives, and so Jennifer Mickelson and Dan Seimer, our former code manager, interviewed again a lot of our developers and folks. Why are you using the incentives? Why are you not using it? So we need to take the next step on that. And then we also have support to do a land availability and suitability study. And this ties into one of the comments I haven't mentioned yet, which is what do we need more than anything? And what for housing, and they'll say buildable lots, right? builders to have to go through the entitlement process takes years, right? To find property, rezone it, build the infrastructure. And so what's the best thing we can do for housing? Have more buildable lots. That's the number one thing we heard. And so this land availability and suitability study is going to help us determine, do we have enough land available to meet our housing goals, right, that we've identified in the housing plan. And so I think this is going to be a really important work that we're going to try to do here over the next fiscal year.
Is that in terms of infill?
Potentially infill. I think determining, yeah, what's the ability here to get more density in this location, right? I mean, that's another hard conversation to have with the community. You know, a lot of our zoning allows more density. We see kind of the lower end of development, particularly in highway commercial, where you can do 5 stories, 29 units an acre. But I do think it addresses infill. And what are the locations where we feel like infill is going to be appropriate? Which is essentially redevelopment of lower density to higher densities, right? Which is one of these big strategies across multiple plans, including our existing regional plan. And then how else do we start to implement this change? I mentioned our IDS team. So we're looking at internal process and procedure. I mentioned in February we chartered the IDS team. We have so many new members, really. I haven't mentioned the fire department. They're one of our IDS partners. And so from our fire department to water services, our own planning team, new roles in engineering, we really needed to bring the team back together and establish what is IDS about? What is the goal of IDS? We're here to process and serve our applicants, right, and let them be successful. And so we created a charter and an action plan, which I've included in the packet tonight. And again, we're meeting already. We've got a, what I'll call an IDS leadership team. So it's myself, Michelle McNulty, our planning director, Rick Barrett, city engineer, Becky Cardiff, our development services manager, Dave Millis, who's our development engineer, and I believe Alexander Pucciarelli, she's been on this team as well. And so we're working on implementing this action plan that came out of the charter, and I'm not going to read it all to you, but there are 5 areas that we identified out of the IDS charter that we need to work on. One is processes, right? So our process. Are we being efficient? Are there things we can eliminate or that we need to add? Training, so training all the new team members. What is it we're trying to achieve? How do you work as a team? How do you support each other? How do we come up with solutions? Communication, both internally and externally. There was quite a few comments about communication and waiting on to hear back from staff. And so we constantly have to be on top of our communication game. The commitment, which frankly this work takes a lot of commitment from an individual to be part of this team. You can't hide on Team Flagstaff. People know if you're not doing your job, particularly on development review. We know if you're not doing your job. And so it takes a commitment and support from each other. And then capacity, how can we build capacity? Not necessarily through new employees, but through our process and through our technology, I think. And so under each of those 5 areas, we have specific bullet points. I think I counted 43. And so we're meeting every week, this IDS action team. We meet every Tuesday, and we're just working through all these bullets. And so we'll see where we are in a year. I see coming back and maybe updating you on a year. We're going to have other things happening that are going to be in front of you related to this topic. But I feel really good about where our IDS team is right now and the leadership group we have over it. And the other big heavy lift are code amendments. So this would be a potential outcome from the review of the codes. We're so happy to have Tiffany Antol as our zoning code manager. She's been using our current code longer than anyone else on staff, which is probably coming up on 9 years. The code's about 10 years old, just over 10 years. And she's been a user, which has been something we've been missing in a code manager. You have to use the code to understand it and know where it needs to be improved. And so Tiffany and all of her colleagues in current planning, they have so many ideas on what we can be doing with our code. And so we're excited to start this community discussion. We haven't completely figured out how it's going to proceed, but we're ready to do the work. I think that was it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Yes, I did a lot of talking.
We have any questions or anything from council? Councilman McCarthy.
I just wanted to make a quickie comment. When that code was implemented, I was on planning and zoning. I read every word of it. And I kind of kicked myself for some of the things that we could have done better. But back then and now, we're doing the best we can, and we keep trying harder.
We're trying to put it on the slim fast plan, our zoning code. You know, it's about like this, yeah, we wouldn't mind getting it down, I don't know, maybe an inch.
Excellent. Councilmember House.
Thanks so much for the presentation. You know, one of the things that I found really interesting in the presentation was the focus on community discussion. And what I hear when you say that is developing partnerships and developing those relationships, which seems really key to the work that's happening there. One of the areas of the comments that I found really interesting was the section on affordable and workforce housing, especially as it started talking about the land trust program and some of the specifics there. Really what stood out to me there was, it made me question, and I'm not sure if you can answer this question, but were there any specifically affordable housing developers, or were there mainly developers who also do affordable, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think the second category is who we talk to.
Okay.
Market
and-
developers who do some affordable housing.
Yeah, the reason that stood out to me was the opening comment there was really what I hear more from the specifically affordable housing developers, is that the issue is the unavailability of land. And what struck me in the comments following that was the statement that the land trust is a futile effort. I really appreciated the comments that we heard earlier that were talking about how that program can work. And so part of what really stood out to me was that need for developing those relationships and getting creative in how we're pursuing that, whether it's through zoning code amendments or changes, or simply looking at how can we do this more creatively to do more infill. But those were just some of the things that really stood out to me. So thanks.
Yeah. No, thanks for bringing that up. Land trusts are a great tool, and I was glad Eric was here tonight. It was kind of good timing, kind of a setup for me. But land trusts are a shared equity model. This is what I say, I didn't fact check. One of the comments was, you know, a no equity land trust. Land trust is not no equity, it's called shared equity, and it can be very successful. I think you just have to plan for it from day one. That's what we've learned. If you're gonna implement land trust units into your project, you gotta plan for it from day one. And you have to have a partner or developer who wants to do land trust for it to work, yeah.
Thank you. Vice Mayor. Oh, Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor, and Dan, thank you for your presentation. And I just wanted to thank you and staff for taking the time to doing this listening tour. I think both Austin and I were on the council with the chamber when that occurred, so it wasn't just Jim, but Jim does have a long time standing with the city in many different ways. But I think it's great that we took the time to do this, and I really appreciate that time spent. I agree with the comments of colleagues around the housing comments that we heard in the feedback we got. You know, I agree with land trust. It's complicated. It's a little tricky, but it's also not that tricky and not that complicated. And there's just certain developers that don't like that. And it is what it is. I don't necessarily care to go into it too much, but I'm great. I'm looking forward to the next steps that you and your team do in right sizing the zoning code and all the other different categories that you're working on. I just think this is really good for all the parties involved, and I'm just grateful for the work you put in, your team has put in with the community partners. So thank you to all that were involved in this, and this is making us better. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. And Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and really thank you for taking the time and doing the listening tour. The last 2 years were a challenge, and I think you you took it on and are better for it with the online portal and going digital. Funny how something that is so difficult to get through can be such a blessing in the end. My fingers are definitely crossed that you get a full team. I think that it would be huge for you, and the fact that you've gotten to where you are without having a full team is pretty incredible, so congratulations with that. I did want to comment on the customer service, and I'm so glad to see that that is, number one on that list. If you go into a project and you're frustrated before you can even get going, it just sets the tone. So in my business, I have the same thing. It's like customer service is number one. So thank you for acknowledging that and working on it. The land trusts, thankfully we have some creative partnerships that confirm, and we have people that want to help us with that model. So thank you for considering that as well. And I'm just excited to see the process and outcome of the review and code standards. I think we're onto something great here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. McCarthy.
You're going to get tired of hearing from me. I just wanted to comment that since I've been in my house, I've done 2 projects that required input from the city, review of plans, approval, inspections, and it all went extremely smoothly. My interaction with the plan review process, the inspectors, I don't have a single negative thing to say. It was all very positive. So thank you.
And I appreciate that comment. I don't recall if I mentioned our building safety program, but Amy Hagan, our building official, they've done an amazing job, and they've managed through some staffing challenges as well. We had a complete turnover a couple years ago when everyone retired. And then right now we currently have 4 inspectors. We have 3 vacancies. And so, this requires managers to go out and do inspections. And we're struggling to find applicants. And so she's keeping our building safety program going. Again, a lot of extra work from a lot of people. That whole team really pulls together. And with Amy and Rick Stenosis' leadership. So thank you for the good words. They do great work.
Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think all of this work with your team exemplifies high-performing governance and all the key community results as stipulated in our priority-based budgeting key community results, especially when it comes to inclusive and engaged community and sustainable and innovative infrastructure. So thank you. Thank you to staff and all the work, time and talent that you have put in. And also, I thank the members of the community who have volunteered to be on this listening tours and the couple of volunteers who have I think they're from the chamber, Guillermo and Cortez and Mr. Mark Woodson. I do believe there can be a potential of interfacing the IDS process, especially with the Citizen Access Portal, and I have mentioned this at our recent budget retreat last month, as we implement the Business One-Stop Shop's service, online portal, business service,
Yes.
and also business service desk. So just keeping it top of mind.
Yes, I did not include that on one of our initiatives, but we do have a group that is meeting on the BOSS, the one-stop
Business One-Stop Shop, business service desk, online portal.
And you provided us some great information from a state portal or a state website, and we've reviewed that, and I think we do have some of those things in place, but we can make it more seamless for sure, and we're going to continue to work on that.
And we can also customize it according to the needs of our city and our customers. And for me, it's also an issue of accountability and transparency, because I get a lot of calls and emails. What's going on with my project? It's been waiting for staff, and then of course I make the call, and so when we have a a process or an online portal where customers can go to, oh, it's under review and they have 3 weeks to respond, or they're waiting for your submittals, or so like it's not always the staff's responsibility in terms of the what's taking time or the delay. So, and for us too on council, we can look into the status of the project. Okay, this is where it is, and it's waiting on the applicant's amendment, of some kind of a submittal.
Resubmittal typically.
Or resubmittal, or review, or, yeah. Thank you so much, appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I have just one little request. I had a constituent reaching out regarding the development status reports. And it doesn't seem to have been uploaded online. So if you all might be able to put that up there, because we do have at least one constituent who is looking to.
And I've
keep an eye on
communicated with that constituent as well. We are updating it. Again, we've had such a changeover. The development status report is an important tool. It was something that I started putting together when I was planning director, and it was really intended to give council information on projects. So when you get an inquiry from a constituent, you know, what things are gonna come to city council, what things are just going through an administrative review. And so at first, we just started capturing kind of big projects and things that would be coming to council because of a rezoning or whatever. But now it's pretty much, over the years, it now captures almost every project. And so it's a very complete list. Michelle has been updating it, again, in the transition of people doing more than one job and that, it took a back seat. But we are close to having it done. She's been working with current planning to update it and get all the current status. I'm gonna do a better job of getting information out to the community and the council on where you can find these reports, because we do put a lot of information on our website. I don't do the best job of promoting where that information is, so I'm gonna try to do better on that.
Thank you, Dan, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, Councilmember Aslan.
Yeah, thank you. Dan, I appreciate all this. I just wanted to bring up one little matter, and I don't want to pontificate on it. I'd rather hear from you. I'd rather get some reaction from you. But you spoke wisely about priorities and trade-offs a little bit, and I see the notion of affordability coming into this picture a lot. I'm very wary of invoking affordability as a complaint against a lot of these, you know, code and requirements and things that we require for development. I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit. It feels like a Trojan horse to me and a bit of a slippery slope, and I'm sure there's a room for give and take and play there, but we don't want to completely eviscerate our code in the name of affordability. You know, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in a Latin American country for 3 years, and I have lived in places where there are no rules and no codes, and things are very affordable, and I don't think that's the kind of community that we want to encourage here into the future. Of course, that's not what we're gonna get, but maybe you can speak to that tension a little bit, and where we draw the line, and how we honor the spirit of the codes and the rules and the requirements, so that we have a safe, healthy, vibrant, and a community with public safety and social justice and a quality of life a minimum quality of life that we all enjoy.
Yeah, no, this is a comment that comes up a lot, right? That because we require too much, and there's a long list of things, I touched on a few tonight, that we can't deliver an affordable project. But I guess there is some skepticism if we were to eliminate certain requirements. You know, what's the guarantee that what you're delivering is actually gonna be, I'll just talk about housing, you know, more affordable. And so I think the approach we took with Foundation for Senior Living is a great model, where we just said, you know, rather than us identifying the incentives, right? So right now you can get reduction in parking, we'll pay for some of the review fees, different things if you provide affordable units, right? And there's depending on what you commit to, you know, what AMI you're serving and the term of the affordability, you get a benefit based on what you're committing to, right? And so we kind of, well, why are people using it? Why aren't they? And so what we wrote into the code just last year and what FSL used was, you tell us where you need relief, right? In exchange for 100% affordability. So that's a high bar, right? You really need almost, I think, a LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit, to do 100% or some other subsidy, right? But maybe we can scale it, and rather than us saying, these are the incentives and here's your benefit, you tell us, based on, again, maybe if you do 10% affordability for a targeted AMI for a certain term, then we'll consider, relief in these areas, and you tell us where you need relief. I almost like that approach better than us defining it, and then people don't use it. There's pros and cons, I think, to both. And as a staff, I'm speaking for myself now, our staff has not really come to firm conclusions, I think, on the best way to deliver affordable housing. But I think it's a really creative idea is, you tell us where you need relief in order to deliver affordability. And what's going to be the defined benefit for the community if we give you this benefit, right? And so we required that project to come in front of city council because we wanted it to be a public discussion. Here is the trade-off, right? That night, it was very focused on the Transect code. You may remember I gave you a little primer how the Transect is very prescriptive, right? And so a lot of those that you gave relief on were, instead of 10 feet, it's 8 feet. Instead of this, it's, and it was about the form of the building and the location of the ceiling heights and all that. But there's other things that we could use as incentives. So again, I think that approach is one we should explore more, and have, instead of 100% affordability, what if you did 20% affordable, 30% affordable? What would be some of the incentives we could offer? So I think that's something we need to continue to explore, as well as our adopted incentives. I think about the projects you do see going around town. I'm used to it now, but it's a very high quality project that happens in Flagstaff. I think about the east side, the Dunkin' Donuts and the Chipotle, and I think a Verizon store going in. And there's a great example of building forward. You see the connectivity, you see the sidewalks, you see the steps down right from the building to the street. Parking is kind of on the side and the rear. I think the buildings are attractive. There's a high degree of design to those buildings, right? And so I think we get an incredible development, right? But it does have a cost to the builder. But I'm proud of what I see around town. I think, again, you can kind of tell what era things were built in sometimes by what improvements you see. And again, connectivity is a big one for us in mode shift. So we try to have sites designed to accommodate mode shift and connectivity. We don't want to get rid of those things. Those are things we need to ensure continue, I think. Yeah.
Councilmember Salas?
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to provide a space of gratitude, in addition to my gratitude to staff, but to the gratitude of developers, particularly Tree Development, who pulled permits before fiscal year 2019-2020 ended, where we collected over $2 million in fees, which bankrolled the city, and that is in the middle of the pandemic. So talk about Highgate, which is now open, Highgate Senior Living, the Bluffs, which will be opening soon, and the Uncommon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. Well, with that, really appreciate it, Dan, and appreciate your team, and glad that, you're almost got a full crew now, so.
We are.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
You as well. And with that, it is high time for a break. Let's do 20 minutes, so 5:15 coming back here. Yep. Excellent. Well, we are down to agenda item some number that's the carbon neutrality plan quarterly update. So, yes, Ginny, please take us away. 9, thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jenny Neiman, Climate Program Manager. Thank you for having me and my team tonight. We're excited to be here for, this is our third quarterly update on the carbon neutrality plan. Here is my team that I'm joined by tonight, all of whom I believe you've met before. Ramon and Jenna are online with us today. Our discussion today will start with highlights of our work over the last 3 months. It will follow a familiar format where we go by key areas of the CMP. We will then outline our plan for updating and revising the carbon neutrality plan already. And then finally, we will present the findings of our initial financial analysis of carbon neutrality plan investments. I do want to let council know before we start that our next update will actually divert from this pattern. We've had 3 of these quarterly updates where we really go into every single target area. The kind of goal was that to help illustrate what implementation actually looks like in these target areas, because a lot of these are new topics for us, right? What does it look like for us to talk about carbon dioxide removal or electric mobility, for instance? In the future, we will scale back a bit and focus on just 2 or 3 main highlights from that work. And with that, I'm really happy to hand it over to Jenna.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Mayor, Council, Jenna Ortega, Climate Engagement Coordinator. Great to be here with you this evening. As we begin our updates on the ongoing effort to implement the Flagstaff Carbon Neutrality Plan, our familiar honeycomb is here to remind us of the 4 main categories of carbon neutrality actions shown in different colors, along with the 9 target areas that summarize our work. We will take you through each category and target area. And to begin, we will start in strong neighborhoods. Our first target area in this category I will take you through is community resilience. Our National League of Cities grant has wrapped up and the final report has been submitted. Funding was used to support the Flagstaff HEPA filter program, a public health program that provided free HEPA air purifiers to at-risk community members. Shown here is a graphic that was used to advertise the program. And additionally, $3,000 of the grant was directed towards engineering needs in the post-fire flood area. Our partners at APS helped us continue the HEPA program through a community grant as well. And when it comes to our partners and their work to advance climate planning, I would like to highlight Flagstaff Unified School District, or FUSD, and their efforts to identify ways that district staff, students, and families can contribute to the climate action goals of our community. A Climate Action Advisory Committee will be finalizing recommendations over the next 2 months. And throughout these efforts, we were able to work with both FUSD and NAU to develop a new greenhouse gas accounting project that will enable FUSD to track their Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. And we're so excited to report that an amazing intern who will collaborate with all 3 agencies has been hired by FUSD to complete the project. And of course, real quick, as a huge part of the Flagstaff community, we are so excited and looking forward to working alongside our partner, NAU, that you got to hear from tonight to achieve our shared goals and commitments to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. All right, we are also working with NAU's Center for Service and Volunteerism to hire 3 AmeriCorps Vistas for the 2022-2023 term. The 3 open positions are Youth Climate Leadership, Clean Jobs and Workforce Development, and Equitable Recovery and Resilience. The recruitment process is underway. Details about each position, along with all the links to apply, can be found on both our website and social media accounts. Applications are being reviewed on a rolling basis, so please share this announcement and encourage folks to apply as soon as possible. When it comes to equitable systems, our next target area, one of the things we are working on is creating ways to better connect the city's climate program with the Flagstaff community. The Youth Climate Advisory Group, who began meeting in March, had their first interactions with the community during Flagstaff's Earth Day celebration. They hosted their own table and they walked around with young people, helping them participate in climate action. I hope if any of you were there, you got to say hello. You can see in the photo here that Albert was able to meet the group and wanted to pose with a few of them. We are also so excited to have our first meeting with the Flagstaff Business Climate Advisory Group later this week. And applications for the Equity Advisory Group will be closing at the end of the month. On this slide, you will see some of our efforts in the last few months to engage with our community. These are highlighted each month in the Sustainability Office report that is provided to Council. From January to April, not including Earth Day, our small climate team engaged with just over 950 people in 94 different climate activities. And with that, I will pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenna. I really appreciate it. Moving into the progress we're making to reduce our dependence on cars, we modified the residential sustainable building incentive back in March, and by we, I mean council. And I just wanted to share one result of that policy change because it really illustrates how incentives can move the needle for us, right, without financial investment from the city, which we'll be talking about later today. Aura Flagstaff was the first to take advantage of this incentive. Because of this incentive, the development is 15% more energy efficient than current city code, while also nearly eliminating natural gas for space and water heating and general use in its units. It's a 5-minute walk from transit, which we know helps to increase affordable living. And because of these steps, the site now provides 20% more housing than the standard zoning allows. And so we really see this as a win-win-win and a great example of the power of policy. NAU continues to be a strong partner for us. This semester, we worked with students to engage their peers, actually, in an effort to get more NAU students on transit. Engagement is great. We also have some examples of expanded transit. We know that that is really what moves the needle, right? Better quality service, higher frequency, et cetera. Really happily, we have 2 recent examples of that in the region. First, the Mountain Line Go Airport program, which is a partnership between Mountain Line and the airport. It launched in March, and it provides on-demand service to and from the airport. I know you've heard about this. The program saw more than 150 boardings that last month. That's 150 cars off the road, 150 people that didn't need to park at the airport. We're really looking forward to see how this ridership grows and the hopeful continuation of this pilot program. Just down the hill, the Sedona shuttle has seen huge gains that we're really thrilled to have learned from. The service carried 42,000 people in its first 22 days. We are just looking to this as an incredible example, right? We know wider roads and more cars aren't going to fix our problems and are going to cost a lot, right? This is showing us that when you actually offer the transit, when it's convenient, it's accessible, it can get a whole lot of folks where they need to go, even hikers, right? We talk about how, oh, well, people need to get into the mountains, they need to do this. 42,000 people in less than a month in Sedona, I think shows kind of the proof of concept of that. So we're just really thrilled and to keep learning with our partners regionally and locally. Finally, we are working with partners across the U.S. to ensure that the new federal infrastructure funding coming through is well aligned with the city's climate and equity priorities. In terms of decreasing dependence on cars, I'm really thrilled to report that last week, the city and Metro Plan partnered to host the Transforming Transportation Workshop. We brought together over 30 staff from the city, Metro Plan, NAU, the county, and ADOT over 2 days. During this workshop, national experts led discussions on best practices in sustainable transportation. We talked about our transportation system and how do we grow it into the transportation system that we want to have. What do we need to know to do to really help Flagstaff make this big shift? You know, we talked about the big shift from carbon neutrality perspectives, but also all the other reasons to do it, right? From better air quality to greater equity to just happiness, right? Of when people change their commutes. So really a huge thank you from us to those more than 30 staff that were able to attend, that committed 2 days to us. Everybody has a ton going on. A lot of them were from Dan Falk and Rick Barrett's shop, right? Who have so many demands on their time and took a lot of time to have this conversation with us. So we're just really thrilled. In terms of electric mobility, this is another one where the market is moving the needle, right? It is most quickly driving change, and we want to support that, right? EV sales continue to rise. They're not as quick as we need them to be, so there's a lot of good news here. We actually need it to go quicker, but the good news is that EV sales doubled from 2020 to 2021 nationally. And we're continuing to see more consumer and manufacturer interest. While that happened, e-bikes also exploded. And even though EV sales doubled, we still sold more electric bikes nationally than we did electric vehicles. So we talk about the electric vehicle revolution. There is an e-bike revolution going on that's actually a lot more affordable for folks, right? And gives them really great mobility, as Councilmember or Vice Mayor Sweet has talked about, right? It gives them this incredible option for a relatively low investment. So it's just really exciting. I do want to pause here and note something about our electric mobility goals because we keep getting this question. You know, the question is, well, won't EVs solve our transportation problems, right? Why do we have to talk about decreasing dependence on cars? And you know, the short answer is no. EVs will not save us. I am a Debbie Downer on this, I know, but it bears repeating. It's a both and situation, right? We need both electric mobility and decreasing dependence on cars. The reason for that is, you know, if we look beyond just EVs, from an emissions standpoint, there are so many benefits to decreasing dependence on cars. Things like reducing congestion, reducing the need for parking, providing equitable access to mobility, helping folks to get around town affordably. Electric vehicles do not do that. What does do that, though, is electric buses, right? Electric scooters, electric bikes, et cetera, changing our land uses for more dense housing, more vibrant neighborhoods, et cetera. And so I just want for us to all continue to talk about both, right? It's not one or the other. We have to do both. Carbon neutrality, we kind of have to do it all. But the blue box here gets into it. The good news is that, again, e-buses, electric buses and e-bikes help with those incredible things and have really incredible benefits. So to that end, we have been approached by scooter companies, and I believe a few have been reaching out to council members. So we will begin looking into scooters and how they might be incorporated into Flagstaff's transportation system. Our neighbors in Kingman and Yuma and Goodyear have all incorporated scooters recently, so they are here in Arizona and they're gonna keep coming. And scooters are actually already here in Flagstaff. I saw a bunch just Sunday at the farmer's market, right? They're already here. The question isn't, are we gonna have scooters in Flagstaff? The question is, are we gonna have a shared scooter system in Flagstaff that makes that cheap and easy transportation available to folks, right? And so, you know, we will of course be back to council to talk about this. I promise this is just a teaser that this is something we're starting to look into. We also continue to work on supporting electric vehicles. We're working internally to ensure that our policies for EV use are really practical and really support staff, whether that's a take-home vehicle or whatever their job might be, that if they have an electric vehicle, that it's helping them get their job done. We're also collaborating with ADOT on its plan for EV charging and continue to work with APS for the Take Charge Arizona Charging Station program. We have 2 stations in development at the airport and the visitor center. In terms of fuel switching, we have had a really big month, and here it is my pleasure to shout out Ramon Alatorre in our office. Within the last year, he has essentially made himself into a local expert on building electrification. He got his own heat pump installed in his home and has collected spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data on it. He also got himself on the front page above the fold in the Daily Sun on heat pumps, no less. So I just want to shout out DC. He has diligently been talking to community members about this, about their struggles, about opportunities they're seeing. He's heard from residents who have questions. And so he brought the Electric League of Arizona up to Flagstaff for 2 workshops. The first attracted 170 folks who registered, community members who really want to learn about super efficient cold weather heat pumps and proving there's really significant demand for this work. He then was able to say, hey, we have almost 200 people here, and brought in 16 contractors to learn the technical information about heat pumps and how to do this work. We really want to make sure we're supporting our contracting and building industry, right, in doing this. And so they came to that more technical side workshop. We're going to continue talking to them and figuring out how we can support them in doing this work. The key message, though, is that cold weather heat pumps are effective in heating homes in Flagstaff. They can warm a home down to about negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. If you've weatherized your home, they can even save you money. And, you know, building electrification is a viable option, it's an attractive option, and it's here in Flagstaff. And there are people in Flagstaff who are electrifying their homes. So it's been a really, really exciting couple months for us. To that note, we will have a revamped and expanded energy rebate program starting July 1st. We got federal funding to provide rebates to residents for electrification and energy and efficiency investments, helping our residents to make investments in our home and then save money. One final plug here, we have a building electrification website. The webinar on heat pumps is available for free until the end of June for anyone interested. So it's a limited time, but you've got about a month and a half left to watch that. And I hope you do. So with that, over to Ramon.
Great, thank you so much, Jenny. I'll be talking about the clean electricity target area. And we are excited to continue to spread the word that the second round of the Northern Arizona Solar Co-op will be launching next week. Once the co-op officially launches on May 16th, then folks will be able to log on to the Solar United Neighbors website and sign up. As a reminder, by joining the co-op, no one is obligated to get a rooftop solar system. Joining allows people to go through the process and become more informed. Co-op members have the opportunity to have their roofs assessed, to review installer proposals, to learn about payment and financing options, and to even get a bid. If the member decides that it is the right time to get solar, they will have the opportunity to move forward. If it is not the right time for any reason, members can withdraw at any time. The slide before you shows the general timeline for this second round of the co-op. And after launch, folks will have until July 31st to join, which is about 10 weeks. For the reduced building energy use target area, we do have an update regarding the municipal facility ESCO project. The investment grade audit has forged ahead in the past 3 months and is now approximately 50% complete. A summary of recommendations and proposals for implementation will be made available to council consideration this fall. All right. This quarter, I have the pleasure of being the voice to highlight the ongoing work that our team members are doing on sustainable consumption and waste management. Registration for the plots in our 3 community gardens opened in March, and already all 62 plots have been rented out. Over 100 gardeners will be participating in the program this year. We are also excited about the Garden Workshop series that has already been developed for this summer. It will include topics such as high altitude gardening, water harvesting, and pest mitigation. The residential food scrap drop-off station at the Flagstaff CSA store continues to grow in popularity, and so going forward, pickup will double from twice a month to once a week. Furthermore, with renewed funding, we expect to open 2 additional drop-off locations in the upcoming fiscal year. Since the launch of the program in October, we have already diverted over 4,000 pounds of waste from the landfill. The chicken coop and composter rebate program launched in March. Residents can receive a rebate of up to $100 when purchasing prefabricated chicken coops or composters. Over the past few months, we have hosted a Fix-It clinic and a drop-off day, and we would like to thank our many partners that make these events possible, including the Flagstaff Police Department, Flagstaff Hazardous Product Center, Coconino County, Elevated Shredding, Ponderosa Medical Waste Services, and R3 Waste Computer and Electronics Recycling. As has been previously reported, the Trash Less Save More pilot program ended in February. Data is currently being compiled and analyzed to develop a citywide implementation plan. And finally, staff had created a QR code sticker, which when scanned will immediately provide residents with a Flagstaff-specific recycling information guide right on their phone. The goal is that these stickers will be applied to every residential recycling bin by November. The Innovate Waste and Carbon Neutrality Challenge with Moonshot at NACET took place on April 22nd. This is a Shark Tank style pitch event, and the pitch competition received 6 exciting proposals. Ultimately, the $30,000 prize purse was awarded to 2 companies. $10,000 was awarded to Crosswalk Labs, a business developed out of the research labs at NAU that is doing really exciting work. Perhaps my favorite analogy about the work they do is that they are looking to become the National Weather Service of greenhouse gas inventories. Indeed, most cities don't have their own weather forecast department, and frankly, if they did, it would be quite inefficient and probably lower in quality. But just like the National Weather Service has the resources to provide the best and highest quality real-time weather data, Crosswalk has the potential to provide the best available emissions data to community and businesses around the world. Additionally, $20,000 was awarded to Restoration Soils, a company with a vision of creating an industrial complex here in Flagstaff that will process liability biomass and and food waste streams, therefore becoming a local source of value-added soil products. An additional $1,000, sort of a bonus award, was awarded by NACET to Windswept Acres. This was a small food rescue organization that has a pickling operation to preserve rescued food before it can go bad. And the founders were looking to expand and add a mobile unit to their operation. So we were excited to be able to find a little bit of a bonus award. Even more specific to the carbon dioxide removal target area on this slide, the Carbon Dioxide Removal Coalition with Boulder County continues to progress in exciting ways. We have had many positive discussions with other prospective partner communities. We have narrowed the scope of what we're looking at, and on May 16th, so next week, we will be co-hosting an informational event for potential project developers in the space of carbon removal and concrete. We have already heard that dozens of leading companies in the space have expressed interest and are planning to attend. And finally, we have had productive conversations with other potential partner organizations to explore mechanisms and opportunities that might allow us to bring a crowdfunding dimension to the coalition.
All right, thank you so much, Ramon. All right, I'm almost done, and then we get to the main event. I want to talk a little bit about revising the CNP. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the adoption of the carbon neutrality plan. It was June in 2021 that we adopted it. And so we've begun planning to revise this document. It feels way too soon, but Ramon reminded me that the cover of the carbon neutrality plan does say an evolving framework for action. And when it was adopted, the city committed to annual revisions. This revisions are really needed to keep the document current, right? We have a goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. That's now 8 years away, right? And so we need to revise that plan to account for what we accomplished, what barriers we've faced, how markets and technology are changing, and really just how we need to adjust our plans. In order to make these technical revisions, we need to have accurate data on our greenhouse gas emissions. This process happens during the summer months every year because we work with NAU students to compile that inventory. So therefore, our annual revisions will occur in the fall of every year after that inventory building process with NAU students. This summer, we will work on 3 types of revisions. We will update our emissions inventory. We'll also update the accompanying wedge graph. That wedge graph is what kind of tells us what we're going to do to get to carbon neutrality, how we will get there, exactly where we will reduce our emissions. It's really tied to that inventory. We also will include details on necessary investments, which Nicole will discuss shortly. And then the third revision we are proposing is to incorporate cap resilience strategies from the 2018 Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. This will be the most substantial change in terms of pages revised, but it will not be a lot of new content. When the CMP was adopted, we intended to still rely on the pre-existing Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, known as the CAP, for certain topics like resilience. It was just a much broader document. Since then, we've heard from several groups that the CNP, the Carbon Neutrality Plan, does not have enough on resilience on things like public health, forest health, water resources, et cetera. And so we've realized that, while we were still planning to rely on the Climate Action Plan, it doesn't make sense to have two documents, right? We can just put all of these things together and make one strong document on both mitigation, so reducing emissions, and resilience. And so our proposal is to bring up those resilience chapters from the 2018 plan and pull them into the carbon neutrality. And we would pull in these three sections that are listed here. So natural resources, which really deals with forest health and open spaces, water resources, and then public health services, facility, and safety. Those were kind of the three gaps. And so the idea is to kind of merge those two documents together so that it's all front of mind. These are both council adopted documents. And again, it really helps. We have heard from folks that it will help them to continue their resilience work, right? If we have essentially forest health, right, which is deeply important, just right with us in the carbon neutrality plan. So staff will work on this over the summer. We will be back to council several times about this to keep you up to date, but we just wanted to lay it out there now as sort of a proposal, and I just want to pause and ensure that it's really clear kind of what we're planning to do, because it will result in a significant addition to the carbon neutrality plan. Again, it's really just kind of doing a little bit of merge of those documents for simplicity. All right. Now, I'm very happy to pass this over to Nicole.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Mayor and Council, Nicole Antonopoulos, Sustainability Director. It's nice to be here in person. So since initial conversations began around the climate emergency declaration back in 2019, staff has discussed the need for sustained commitment, sustained energy to be leaders, and the investment that would be required to uphold the commitment to Flagstaff to achieve carbon neutrality. Over the last 10 months, the community investment analysis was developed through careful evaluation by experts. The analysis you'll see represents the projected costs and projected fiscal benefits. This is a projection to help us get comfortable with the type of investment that carbon neutrality requires. What you won't see is quantification of the numerous indirect benefits, including public health, home health and safety, equity, resilience, and livability. The financial analysis was designed to quantify, design, and create funding strategies around the specific climate action programs and projects identified in the carbon neutrality plan. This was broken into 4 stages of analysis. We began with design sprints of the 3 most impactful actions the city could take. These are building energy retrofits, carbon dioxide removal, and building electrification. Then we conducted best practice scans of these programs and projects from aspiring communities and moved into the quantification of the carbon impact and financial needs, which you'll see in just a few moments. We are now working on stage 4, which is the program design and funding strategies. And as you know, the funding landscape, similar to technology, is changing quickly and constantly. I want to take a moment to unpack the quantifications before we dive into the numbers. Elevate Consulting evaluated the total projected costs for the city for the implementation of these various programs and initiatives. They are right-sized to achieve the goals outlined in the carbon neutrality plan today. And I want to keep that in our forefront as we're talking about this investment strategy. This is what we know today. And as you heard earlier from NAU, their commitment to carbon neutrality is going to have a significant impact on that wedge analysis that Jenny just mentioned and that reevaluation. And that's why it's so critical that every year we are reassessing impacts not only on the work that we do here from the city, but from our community partners. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a moment. So going back to the evaluation was broken down by the categories listed on this slide. And please note that not all actions will have revenues and or savings. Carbon dioxide removal is a great example. It was modeled as a a cost-only initiative. Excuse me. Okay, here we are. This is the big slide. This is a total projected community investment. And I want to also emphasize that term community. This is not to suggest that the city is going to be investing almost $600 million for all the carbon neutrality plan. If you want to, well, that's a whole different conversation. But as it stands today, the investment is close to $600 million for our community. So we're going to pack this a little bit. I'll just leave this up for a second. Okay. But before we dive into that, I thought it would be helpful to place this community investment price tag in perspective. And so in past presentations, and I know that everyone on the dais has had the luxury to have been an audience of past presentations, but we have referenced Ann Arbor, Michigan as a resource. And Ann Arbor has a carbon neutrality by 2030 agenda similar to ours here in Flagstaff. And so just putting this in perspective, Ann Arbor's total community investment is over $1 billion to reduce approximately 2.2 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Ann Arbor does have similar demographics to Flagstaff, and which is really helpful for us as we're looking at this investment analysis. Their population is just under 124,000, while ours is just under 77. But both communities have grown by about 10,000 people in the last 10 years. And within that, we have similar proportions of rental housing. Ours about 45 to 47% owner occupied, and similar challenges with rents and housing values. And in terms of economics, both are college-dominated communities. Ann Arbor's median household income is slightly higher than ours, as is their poverty rate. So we feel that a cross-analysis with Ann Arbor is a safe discussion. Their strategies, though, differ significantly, as Michigan and Arizona have different energy laws and policies in place. So Arizona is much more restricted. One of Ann Arbor's most cost-effective strategy in their carbon neutrality plan is community aggregated solar, which we cannot legally do in the state of Arizona. So we have to keep that in mind when we do look at other communities and aspiring organizations. But all this is to say is that our total community investment analysis is in line with what we're seeing in other parts of the country, and I think that that is hopefully bringing some comfort to the analysis that we've conducted. And then another anchor just to place this investment in perspective are major capital projects. And what we know is that major road infrastructure projects and water and wastewater infrastructure projects can range between $50 and $300 million. So we look at this as a capital investment in our community. Okay. Please don't get overwhelmed, and I promise I am not going to go through every line, but I will offer an in-depth meeting into the analysis with Elevate Consulting if the council is interested. And so I'll work with city staff to offer that to the council if you'd like to sit down and really go through the analysis and the comparisons that Elevate use in their methodology. And so I do want to note that because a revenue isn't noted, that doesn't mean there aren't benefits to our community. And so an example here is helping businesses with perhaps commercial retrofit, to commercially retrofit their building, for example, provides a return to the business, not the city necessarily. Likewise, with the active transportation management plan, the benefits are to public health, transportation, business attraction, and tourism. But you can see here on the slide that there shows no revenue coming back. These are hard to quantify, and we recognize that we can't really capture these benefits when it comes to public health and equity just yet. I do want to point out the residential loan financing program, and just to help out that, I apologize, don't click, but where the cursor is, it's about halfway down the graph. This program, at the cost of $6.3 million, could yield over $100 million in revenue as a carbon reduction cost of $220, roughly, per metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. Keep that number in mind when you look at that center column called cost /MTCO2E, and take just a peek at those numbers. We see numbers as high as $9,500. And the reason I want to point this out, it comes up in a slide or two. And then another strategy I think that's important to highlight here, and just representative of how this investment analysis is going to be evolving along with the framework for carbon neutrality, is the Clean Energy Project. And right now it's listed at just under $39 million. And there could be a point where the city determines that it may want to just only purchase clean energy from the utility rather than investing in a renewable energy development that it owns. This is all up for discussion and council direction, but I think it's worthy of noting in this analysis. Okay, so just pausing for a breath collectively. This is all about building a stronger community. And I really would like to encourage and invite all of our community to think about the carbon neutrality plan and the strategies that have been identified in it as such. This is an investment in our community. And as you look at these 5 points on the screen that are listed as strategies, these are all improvement capital projects that the city has quasi at least acknowledged as a need that were outside of the carbon neutrality plan. And so just highlighting a few of those, again, the active transportation master plan, landfill gas capture, recycling and composting, and then city fleet conversion. Okay, so we're almost there. I really want to offer some comfort to the council and the community that we are not alone. And the needle is moving through market change. And I'm pleased to announce, as Ramon Alatorre just mentioned, that round 2 of the Northern Arizona Solar Co-op is happening next week. And we had such a successful round 1, or our launch of the solar co-op. 83 residences installed nearly 700 kilowatts of energy, bringing us significantly closer to the goal of 10 megawatts of solar on residential structures in our community at no cost. So we know the market is the market is moving in this direction. Technology is changing rapidly. On April 13th, The Atlantic reported an alliance of prominent Silicon Valley companies, including Google and Meta and Shopify, and the payment company Stripe, purchased $925 million in carbon removal over the next 8 years. And just on May 10th, the Times of Israel reported the High Hopes Lab is developing special carbon capturing balloons. Who knew? And if successful, will provide an affordable and scalable method for capturing carbon from the atmosphere for less than $50 per ton. And if you remember that previous slide, we had some price costing at almost $10,000 per ton. So technology is advancing quickly and investment is advancing quickly. And then finally, behavior change should not be undervalued. And an exciting example is here at the City of Flagstaff with our hybrid work policy, which will be before the council soon. And part of that policy will require staff to answer some questions about their commute, so we can actually calculate what type of vehicle mile reductions will be a result of this hybrid work policy in support of the carbon neutrality goals. None of that is calculated in the current financial analysis that we have in front of you currently. And then, as mentioned, the funding landscape is constantly changing, and we will continue to monitor and apply for all opportunities. We will also continue to work with our community partners, our internal partners such as Economic Vitality, the carbon dioxide removal event that was held just recently was a partnership internally with economic development and sustainability, and it was a great success, and we continue to advance those moving forward. So we cannot underscore the value of our partnerships as well as the importance of developing a creative financial structure for our plan and for our community. Achieving carbon neutrality requires all of us. And with that, I will leave you with one of my favorite quotes that actually Ramon Alatorre brought forward, and I hope I get it right, but that it took trillions of dollars of industry to put these greenhouse gases into our atmosphere, and it will create trillions of dollars of industry to remove it. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Nicole, and the whole team. Yeah, really appreciate it. Let me just get out my pocketbook here for a slide.
Perfect.
No, I really appreciate that. That was my favorite slide, actually, looking at the numbers. Yeah, anyways, opening it up for council questions and comments. Councilmember House.
Thank you, guys. This was a really exciting presentation. And it's really exciting to see the steps that the city is taking to advance this. A couple questions did come up, especially around some of the numbers. And I think for me, the big thing is not thinking that it's unreasonable or too costly, but just wondering, like, how in layman's terms do you explain to the community that value? And I mean, the quote that you shared at the end certainly helps, but it's a hard number to swallow, especially the difference between the cost versus some of the financial benefit. But I'm sure it's things that you have been thinking about and taking into consideration. So if you could maybe just go into that a little bit, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So, you know, and this has been a conversation we have a lot. And when we're talking about building a stronger community, carbon neutrality and all the work that we're doing to achieve carbon neutrality takes into consideration resiliency. And when we think of resilience right now, I think the most important thing when we're talking about resilience, we're thinking of the flood area. And when we are talking about these events that are happening faster and consistently in terms of climatic events, fire, drought, flooding, we need to do a better job in talking about the fact that these are climate related. And by no means do we want to paint a picture of doom and gloom, but I think we need to create a language and a dialogue with our community that's realistic. The Southwest is experiencing climatic changes faster and harsher than any other part of the country. I think the last week, we can honestly say, has never been windier, but the ramifications of climatic changes are going to continue to put so much stress on our community, be it economically, mental health, physical health, and that we need to start talking about this in a more broad way. And so that's an area that we can significantly improve upon. And we have to find that balance because there are solutions out there, but if we aren't having those healthy conversations, we don't want to be fear-driven in how we're talking about climate change and climate impacts. So that's an area that we absolutely can improve on as a city organization, and even in sustainability. We actually have a meeting coming up to have a discussion just about that, where in stormwater, sustainability, and wild and fire are having more concrete and consistent dialogue with our community members. And our hope with that is that we can continue to better educate. But until that happens, I think that the work ahead of us really is talking about this list in front of you is about building a stronger community. The benefits of a lot of these strategies and actions go to each individual community member in some form or fashion. And our hope in developing the Equity Advisory Group is to ensure that the way that we're designing these programs do adequately serve the most vulnerable members and the most at-risk members of our community. I had a wonderful opportunity of meeting with the former climate advisor for the city of Portland, Oregon, and they said, if we designed everything, every policy for our most vulnerable community members, then we would serve everyone. And I think that that is our hope in rooting these programs through that lens.
You just answered my second question, so thank you.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Councilmember Eslin?
Sure, I'll just put a finer point on what you just said, since I'm trained to give sound bites to the newspaper and you're not. It's not about whether or not we can afford to do this, it's whether or not we can afford not to do it.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Going back to the Business Climate Advisory Group, can you talk a little bit about what that will look like and what the objective and the goal, what kind of conversations are you going to be having with that?
Absolutely, and if I may ask Jenna to step in and respond to that, as she is leading our, our Business Advisory Group.
Hi, Jenna.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, this is a brand new group, and we kind of want two things. We have a handful of things we would love to get their advice on, and this includes the carbon neutrality plan, what resources businesses in our community need most, how can we help them most. But we respect the expertise of this group, and so we also want to hear from them as experts in our community if there's certain issues that perhaps we haven't even thought of that are really important to businesses. So I think we're going to hopefully go in both directions. But, the goal of this group is to really guide how we implement the carbon neutrality plan when it comes to businesses, how we can engage better with our business community, and really, again, the resources they need when it comes to climate impacts as well as climate mitigation efforts. So that's kind of just a broad overview of them, but I'd be happy to answer if you wanted a more specific kind of list of things, you can let me know.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing more on what comes out of those conversations. And I do have another question. So I'm excited about the EV scooters, although you probably won't be seeing me on one. I am curious. I remember, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a bike share program that was on the way, and it fizzled, or something happened. And I'm wondering, do we have anything in the pipeline for that? Bikes, EV bikes, and I would be excited if that could come back around.
Thank you, Councilmember Sweet, for the question. Yes, so we had a pilot program for about 6 months. That was the Orange Bikes Spin. Spin ended up pulling out pretty early into their pilot program. Well, it was all right. It was a fair separation, maybe. We then entered into a contract with Gotcha. Gotcha provides a really interesting option where they provide e-bikes, but you can actually turn the electric motor off if you wanted to save money and you just wanted a regular bike. We entered into contract with them in 2019, and we worked with them for about a year to plan a system, and then the pandemic happened, and bike shares were really experienced a lot of challenges, I should say. A lot of bike share companies closed. A lot of bikes in smaller communities, the bikes just got pulled off of the street. And so the bike share industry has changed significantly since then. We would love to have bikes, but these days we are really only getting approached by scooter companies. If what we understand from the industry right now, if we wanted to have a bike share system, we would need to make a financial commitment from the city. And even Gotcha was really struggling with our sign code because their model really relies on advertising. Our sign code really limits off-premise advertising. And so you couldn't put, let's say, a Geico, I don't know why that's what came to me, a Geico label on a bike, right? That doesn't comply with our sign code. And so as we understand it, bike share programs really rely on that additional revenue from advertising. What has come through and what has become really apparent in the last 2 years is that scooter companies are much more self-sufficient. And so the company that I spoke with last week, they don't rely on advertising at all. And the reason is because scooters, they say, get 8 to 9 times more rides every day than a bike does. The equipment is just in use more. And when you think about it, a scooter, you kind of just step on and go, right? It matters less about your wardrobe. It matters less about, you need to get in kind of an athletic stance of a bike, right? And I'm a bike rider, but a scooter has a different sort of attractiveness. And so we're looking into this. We want to proof out those numbers, but that's what they're seeing. The companies are just a lot more successful. They can be more profitable, and what makes companies come here without us investing in it, right? And so the industry has just really, really changed, and we're seeing scooters as kind of the option that's probably going to stick around for a long time. We are still keeping our eyes open if there was a partner that wanted to do bikes, because some folks want, to ride bikes. And there's also other models as well. There's, community bike libraries, right, that other communities have done. There are e-bike rebate programs, as you all discussed, I think, just last week. There's, e-bike grants that some communities in Colorado have done for low-income community members to say, we're going to give you an e-bike. Tell us how you're using it. Tell us how you're riding it. Does it help you get there, right? So there's a lot of other options, and we're going to continue to look. But yeah, it's been an interesting world of e-bikes versus scooters. Did you want to add anything? No?
No, well, I was just going to say NAU.
Yes, and NAU is a critical partner here. So NAU and us are really lockstep. We have committed to each other and working with the NAU transportation team that, we will go into agreement with a partnership together. It's hard to tell sometimes where campus ends, right? We know that, we don't want one of us going in one place or another. So more to come there, and we'll see, but I appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Well, one of the cool things too about the new scooters also is that they have them able to move them from their headquarters. So if somebody leaves them out in the middle of the street or something like that, there's now technology to move the electronic scooters by computer station and so forth. So it's kind of cool, because I know obviously we heard a lot about the bikes all over town before, and it's kind of a cool option that they're starting to implement that. So anyways, I'm excited for the possibilities on that front. Cool. Councilmember Shimoni?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Jenny, Nicole, Jenna, and DC. Thank you for the presentation and the update and all of your great work on this front. Very important work, and really pleased with the update. Even the finances, it seems overwhelming, but, I'll come back to my comments about that in a minute here. But Jenny, the first thing I took note of in your presentation was the 42,000 individuals taking the shuttle in Sedona. What is that?
So Sedona has worked really closely with the Coconino National Forest to change their parking at certain trailheads, to actually restrict parking at certain trailheads, and provide shuttle services from central points in town to different trailheads. We talked a lot at the workshop last week about, sometimes people don't take these options if we have plentiful free parking, right? They were getting a lot of complaints from their neighborhoods. This is actually a quality of life initiative in some way for Sedona residents, right? Because of overflow parking, et cetera. And so, yeah, they've been working really hard. It's a free shuttle. It's pretty incredible. And you can watch the videos. They have videos online of just, hikers just getting on and off all day. It's pretty sweet.
Wow, that's incredible. So takeaway is remove parking, supplement with rideshare options. Council, take note, right? That's the secret formula, and that's amazing. I don't have many comments. I'll just say that we're not going to achieve these goals on our own, and we really do need our partners. And it's going to be a team effort to get us there. And so appreciate all the work we're doing. I love that we have that business advisory group that we're meeting with and working with, and every other group that we're talking to. Jenny, my question for you and Nicole and for the team really is, when I think about the city and how we're going to address these goals and how we're going to get there and what the council can do in our roles, I think about the city's business and the day in, day out work that we see and we manage and we approve, and the money that we spend as a city. How do you think we can better align the city's efforts and the decisions that council makes with the climate neutrality goals? Often, we'll hear from different perspectives and different community needs and different, struggles that are playing out. But we don't always hear from sustainability and what is actually getting us towards neutrality and what isn't. Do you have any thoughts as to how to help the council moving forward with decisions to better align our decision making and our money to our goals?
Thank you, council member. And my initial thought in responding to that question, because it is quite complex, is until we have had this financial analysis completed, we really haven't been able to identify where our needs are directly most beneficial. Excuse me, the funding is most beneficial, and what in terms of greenhouse gas emission reductions. We simultaneously have a number of processes that I think are going to be really important, and I know we're not there yet, but I do want to defer to performance-based budgeting as an opportunity to ensure that we are building in mechanisms that are transparent to our community as well as to the council in terms of, if I may, bang for the buck. But in terms of the funding, the city has a lot of needs, and I don't envy the situation that any of you are in up on the dais in terms of what gets funded and what doesn't. My thought is that, you can tell I'm being very cautious on how I respond to this question, right? My thought is that, it really is, if we can think holistically about our community and be consistent in our funding and how we direct our monies, then we will be able to advance multiple needs throughout this community. But I think that is the challenge that the council members are really faced with. That consistency and putting decision-making through certain lenses will be helpful. You now see on staff summaries that there is a carbon neutrality alignment in the staff summary to help the council take into consideration, no, this particular initiative will help advance the carbon neutrality plan in this way, or it may not at all, but it helps advance another need in the community that is also pressing. As we start diving into the funding potential, I feel that I'll be better able to answer that question. That was my very political response. How'd I do?
That helps. That was good. I thought that was good. Thank you, Nicole. And I appreciate that integration into the agenda packets. I think that's really important. We don't just need to hear all the positives. We need to hear the real talk, because we're on a very tight timeline, and talk is cheap. We've done the talking. Now it's time to act. And it's on us, council, and it's on us, staff and leadership, and it's really all of us in this community. And so I'm excited. I recognize my time is limited, but I think the city is in good hands. I appreciate all the leadership at the city and everyone working on these things and the council. And, with funding, I think that we'll just, continue to explore creative funding options, really leveraging the market at times and opportunities that we have through different federal grant opportunities as presented upon. And we'll just keep talking about this topic year after year. And I love that we're already making changes to the plan, Jenny, after year one. I think that's critical that we stay nimble. And I know that that's part of our core philosophy. So those are just my comments. And looking forward to championing some of these things as we have the opportunity to at the dais. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. Well, I'm not seeing any further comments or questions, so thank you, sustainability team. Really
you.
appreciate all the work.
Thanks.
All right, with that, we are down to agenda item 10, general public participation, assuming we don't have anything.
Mayor, we do not.
All right, and then agenda item 11, information items 2 from mayor, council, and city manager and fairs. I will start at this end of the table with Councilmember Salas.
To pull up my calendar. So this Saturday is the Elevate Pre-K, Elevate Pre-K event, Elevate Pre-K celebration, 4 o'clock at High Country Conference Center. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Aslan.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor. At the public participation at the start of this meeting this afternoon, there was a couple of interesting things brought up. One was marking the bicycle lanes up San Francisco Street. I hope I'm not stealing Mr. Shimoni's thunder here, but that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like what's required would be a fairly minor effort financially and staff time, but could make a big difference on the safety of bicyclists going up San Francisco. So I'm hoping that staff can move forward on that somehow. I don't know if that means taking it to the bicycle committee and asking them to look into it or whatever, but I think it's a worthwhile thing. The other thing is that Mr. Tom Martin asked that we give some recognition to Dr. Ritland, who is a spine and surgeon here in town. And I would think that we could at least write a letter, maybe over the mayor's signature. I'm sure if that would be acceptable, that Mr. Tom Martin would be willing to, provide some words for that letter. So I don't know who to address that to. Mayor, does that sound like a good idea?
I texted already Sean right at the beginning of the meeting to get us in.
All right,
order
that'd
for
be really great.
recognition, So.
Thank you. So that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Well, I guess we had the pre-K bit. I will mention that on Friday is the executive committee meeting for the Arizona League of Cities and Towns. So hopefully we will get some good information back to provide next Tuesday on where we're at with bills and where the league is in advocating one way or another. And there's a lot of movement down south right now. So it'll be good to get the meeting of the minds of all the mayors. Aside from that, I'll pass on the torch to Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I didn't think I had anything, but Councilmember McCarthy, you brought up a good point. Dr. Ritalin did work on my husband's spine, and he went from having no feeling in his arm to having it fully repaired, and I would definitely be happy to see that letter move forward. So thank you for bringing that back up.
Councilmember Shimoni.
Thank you, Mayor. Good meeting, everybody. A couple things this past week, actually yesterday, we had our 911 diversion call for Coconino County. Mayor was able to join us for more or less most of the meeting, but it was a good meeting, a good conversation. The group did kick Mayor and I out so that they could discuss some of our more high frequent utilizers and better identify a better game plan for them and how to best support them. And just a big shout out to Katie Brandis all day, every day, who is at Dispatch for all her great work and leadership and integrating the CRN and their trainings and their ideas. And so it was a really good meeting and a good discussion. This morning I was part of a call that's monthly with a national group of alternate response group leaders from Chicago to Portland to all over the nation. And this is a good discussion about hiring practices and the importance of peer specialists and just the importance of getting the right person for the job. Last week, myself and Councilmember Vice Mayor Sweet, so sorry, Vice Mayor, got to be part of a conversation with Mountain Line and ADOT to discuss an appeal for their denial of a light at the corner of Phoenix and Milton. And so with the new DCC, there was a request put in to put a light there to allow bus movement, and ADOT denied it. We are hoping that in the review of our appeal that they will reconsider that denial, but I will keep you posted on that. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for joining the conversation. It was a very important conversation in that, speaking about that 42,000 shuttle in Sedona in the last month, that's what this is all about. So we need bus transportation to be efficient and effective in the city of Flagstaff, and that light is critical for the movement of buses from our DCC. This Wednesday, tomorrow, the CJCC is meeting, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and again, those meetings are open to the public, posted on the county's website, 3 to 5 p.m., and I think folks can join virtually and possibly in person as well. Councilmember Salas, thank you for bringing up Elevate Pre-K this Saturday. That's going to be really a really good event. And Councilmember McCarthy, I really appreciate you speaking up about the markings for bike lanes. I get overwhelmed with the amount of need there is for bike things. So I appreciate you being another voice to echo those needs and the public commenter. This should be a low-hanging fruit item, and I'm hoping that staff can just take this comment and run with it. But it seems like Elson tells me he regularly advocates for better bike share markings to be done because of how frequently they go bad and get just not visible. And then lastly, I met with Martin and Eliza to talk about the Sheep Highway Tunnel near Councilmember Aslan's house. And there's a group in town who want to name that tunnel after Cosmic Ray. The gentleman, big advocate, I think a lot of us know who that is. He passed away a couple of years ago or so. And we're working on it, and just a big shout out to Eliza and Martin and city manager for helping move that conversation along now that some time has passed. And that will probably be coming back to us at some point. Good meeting tonight, and really appreciate the conversations we've had. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni and Councilmember House.
I promise I'll be quick. I had an opportunity this past weekend to attend a stakeholder meeting hosted by Creative Flagstaff for input, feedback, and brainstorming ideas for a proposed citywide festival concept. It was a really interesting meeting, lots of really cool ideas that came out of that. Also had the opportunity to attend the Boys and Girls Club 4th annual Kentucky Derby fundraiser along with Councilmember Salas. Besides the massive upset of the Derby winner, it was a really great afternoon supporting the youth of our community, and it was a lot of fun to be able to participate in that. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out for the One a Day in May challenge from the Sustainability Office. It's a really fun and easy way to contribute to keeping Flagstaff neighborhoods and communities beautiful. You just have to download the Literati app and use the code OneADayMay in all caps to join the challenge. Right now, if you go by the app, there's 2 people participating, and I'm one of them. There are prizes involved, so if community members are listening and want to get in on the action, my numbers are very low. It will be very easy to pass me, so thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember House. Clifton, anything for us?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. 2 quick items, please. I will be out of the office for next week, for the entire week. I have cleared my calendar, you will note. I apologize in advance for any inconveniences. If there are standing meetings that are being missed, trust me, we'll get them rescheduled when I return. In my absence, Shannon Anderson will be the acting city manager, and you'll see her in this seat next Tuesday. Thank you, Shannon. The second item is just an FYI. We are putting together, we'll have another meeting on this tomorrow. We at the staff level have been endeavoring to put together some volunteer days that will be, that we're talking about institutionalizing administratively here at the city. This would be an effort to attract and invite city employees, and we'll be looking outside the organization as well, but primarily city employees to engage in a series of volunteer days likely to occur in the weeks ahead. We're looking at 3 of them on Saturdays. The dates are tentative, but we're looking at May 21st, June 4th, and June 18th. The volunteer efforts this year, and this could be the template for a future program, an ongoing program, but the volunteer efforts this year will be to head out to the Sunnyside and Grandview neighborhoods and assist with the sandbag refresh and related efforts with involving cleanup and preparation for monsoon season. We will likely have Public Works fleet vehicles available, equipment available to help move things, dumpsters stationed, a lot of things related to what I just described. So staffing, equipment, resources. Stay tuned for details on that, but it seems to be getting traction. We're very excited about it. We will make it fun, and not fun, but worthwhile for our employees, hopefully fun. And certainly beneficial to the neighborhoods. So this, if we can pull it off, should be a win-win arrangement. Stay tuned. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you for putting that together, City Manager. And with that, boom, meeting adjourned.